Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. And of course, this season, we are focusing on the year 1999. And this is part 2 because we did already, full disclosure, we already talked about 1999. But we only did 8 movies, and we're like, man, do we really know? 99 is absolutely full of good movies, and we only had 8 that we really got in depth. We had to throw 8 more in there. We've expanded the bracket. There's 8 new ones. The movie we're going to talk about tonight is Three Kings, and then stick around near the end of the show. We're going to briefly talk about Magnolia, which we covered the first 1999 season. I am your host, Greg. I'm so jazzed to be here. This is, remember, a game show, so I will be giving out points. We're going to have a few panelists tonight, and if they answer a question I pose correctly, if they make a good point, if they insult me in a way that I'm like, okay, that's hard to hear, but it is true, then you'll probably hear me say that's going to be points. And at the end of every segment, you'll hear a little catch up on how many points our panelists have scored. And what would a game show be without its contestants? I guess it'd be a normal podcast. That'll never work. The first king has come to steal your gold. It's Ryan. How you doing, Ryan?
Hi, Greg. I'm doing good. First word in a podcast that you have to say is always hard, and I think I got through it gracefully.
That's the hard part about having a lot of runway for the introduction.
Yeah.
When it finally comes around to you, it's like, oh no, wait, I'm supposed to say stuff into this mic now.
People in the studio audience know that I was trying to interrupt you. They could see me trying to interrupt you every second, but not with my words, with my middle fingers.
Shooting me the double-barrel birds. Our second king has come to steal your heart. It's Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Happy to be here, Greg, and happy to say my first word perfectly. It's hard to interrupt Greg because he is our Phil Spector. He just creates that wall of sound that we all know and love. And he's a little murderous sometimes.
And I got the hair. If I got this bad boy picked out, this is Phil Spector's hair. Our third king is here to steal the whole dang show because he literally wrote the book on the movies of 1999 and recorded the podcast about war movies. Do we even get to win this time? The book is called Best Movie Year Ever, How 1999 Blew Up the Big Screen. But he's also written High Status Characters, How the Upright Citizen Brigade Stormed a City, Started a Scene, and Changed Comedy Forever. Also wrote a book, Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life. Is in the process of writing or finishing up a book I'm led to believe by the internet called Hannibal Lecter, A Life. Also has made multiple Ringer podcasts, including the Hollywood Hack. Do we get to win this time? And Gene and Roger, welcome to the show, Brian Raftery.
Thank you for having me. I love hanging out with Phil Spector. We've a lot to talk about for the last couple of years of your life.
I like to keep it fresh. Brian, first off, we have to obviously talk about your book about 1999. But first off, tell me about this book that's coming up, Hannibal Lecter, A Life. It sounds so interesting.
It's interesting. It is definitely interesting. It's also a little weird, but it is a biography of Hannibal Lecter. But it's also about the making of The Silence of the Lambs, the making of Manhunter, the making of the TV show. So I interviewed Michael Mann. I interviewed Brian Cox. So it's basically looking at how Hannibal Lecter went from a character who was in 11 pages of a book to becoming maybe the most popular villain of the 20th and 21st century, and also kind of tying it into how his rise, as it were, kind of kicked off the true crime explosion that we're now really in the thick of at this point. So hopefully it's fun. I mean, I love those movies. I love those books. So it's been really fun to sort of dive into the making of those. And yeah, it's kind of a crazy idea because it is basically about Hannibal Lecter, who a character, a few words, but 50 million books and who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars people are still obsessed with him.
I know he's smart, but to own 50 million books, that's a lot for one character.
Sorry, he sold 50 million books.
Okay.
Despite being in very few pages of them.
You said that he was maybe the biggest villain. I could think of another one. Was the inspiration for this book our current president's obsession with Hannibal Lecter, bringing him up every chance he can?
Weirdly, we discussed the book and we kind of pitched it and it was a done deal. And then he started talking about Hannibal Lecter. So it really kind of became I think actually we hadn't even closed the contract yet. And my editor and I are like, did you see Trump just talked about Hannibal Lecter last night? And then 2 weeks later, it's like, did you see he did it again?
Again.
Like, and then it became so regular that we didn't even bother to text each other about it anymore.
The best part is how he started near the end, because he doesn't really do it anymore. But the best part is how he started near the end. He'd go, "My advisors say to stop talking about
I know,
this,
yeah.
but I'm not going to."
Did you ask him for a pull quote for the cover?
I did not. No, we have not gone to him for a blurb yet. I'm not sure how that might affect his commercial prospects. He might do it. Who knows at this point? Apparently, you can just call him up if you get his number, and he'll just talk to a reporter. So I don't know.
Yeah, he'll throw his name on anything.
Brian, the first time we did 1999, our movie of the year was Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about? Is that a good? Because what we're doing this season basically is we're testing that season. Did we get the right answer? What do you think right off the bat? Is Eyes Wide Shut a good 1999 movie of the year?
It's a great movie. It's also a really interesting choice because it was not a hit in 1999. It is only really in the last 10 years that movie has gone from a movie that people kind of misremembered or never bothered to see to a movie that now plays Los Angeles like every 2 weeks and sells out, it seems, especially around the holidays. That movie was so
It's a Christmas movie.
It is. It screens all the time around Christmas at numerous theaters out here at this point. And it was when we were putting the book together, like in 2017, 2018, we were actually having back and forth like, does Eyes Wide Shut deserve its own chapter? Because it was not a huge. I loved it when I saw it. I thought it was great, but it was not like Fight Club or The Matrix or Office Space, like a movie that's quoted and referenced all the time. I think people under 30 have truly embraced that movie. And I think, when it came out, it had all this hype and pressure because it was Tom and Nicole and on the cover of Time magazine, naked. And I think young people who watch that movie now, they're like, this is a really weird movie about an uncomfortable pervert, and it's very funny, and it's also about conspiracies and secret societies. So it's like, it is one of the most 2025 movies to come out in 1999. Like, it is, I hate the term, it's a very rich text, but boy, it is a very rich text. But I always loved it as a film, but I saw it on opening weekend in Manhattan, and I was living in New Jersey at the time in the suburbs, and I bought my ticket like a week in advance, which was a very hard thing to do back then. Like, I went to the box office, I took the train in on a Sunday afternoon. I'm like, this is going to be the most important movie. Like, it's going to be packed. I have to get there early. I saw it at a massive theater near Times Square, and I swear to God there were only 10 other people there. I mean, it was just the movie just stiffed, really. People just didn't know what to make of it, and it wasn't. They thought it was going to be a really steamy movie. And they didn't think it was about like this weird insecure yuppie like running around this kind of fake version of New York for 2.5 hours, which I loved, but it was not exactly a hit. So I'm delighted that it's not only become beloved, but it's now some people's favorite movie that year, which is great.
Some people.
It's funny that you bring up Gen Z when you're talking about it, because that movie 25, 26 years ago treated sex on film the way that they sort of think about sex on film now, as it just makes them uncomfortable and they don't get why it's in the movie. And it fits perfectly with that generation, I think.
That's interesting. I may have met millennials too, but just a lot of younger. I don't know how old anyone is anymore. So sometimes I'll meet people or they'll talk to you about movies at an event or something. And I'm like, I can't tell if you're 15 or 45 because I'm old. But it's definitely a lot of young people. And I think they find that movie funny in a way that, obviously there's a lot of dark stuff in it, but I do think it is ultimately a comedy about a guy who's so insecure that his wife says one thing to him and he's like, all right, I have to go find an orgy. Like, it's like the weirdest, like, he's almost like a Tim Robinson character. Like, he's just such an exaggerated, like, kind of near midlife crisis, average square dude who does not know what to do with his anger, so he just blows it up in the quickest way possible. It's a great movie, and I'm so glad people get so much out of it that people didn't get 25 years ago or so.
I think that's ultimately why it won, is because it feels like there's so much in there that you can't really like encompass it all. The sort of like the central thesis to your book about 1999 is that it deeply informs modern times. Now, I know this book came out, a few years ago, but I don't know. That's something that like, it feels very accurate to me. As I watch these movies of 1999, I feel very much like they do a good job explaining like how we got to where we are. That 99 has an intense like influence on us still, or that the themes we see developing in 1999 are still very resonant in the culture. Do you still like you alluded to that in your book about 1999? Do you still think that is the case even like 6 years later now?
I mean, I think those films, I mean, I think you can look at any kind of like really vibrant film period and the movies that stand out from that time. If the studio system's running in a good way and if the indies are kind of a counterpoint, like, and you get a really robust kind of movie period, like, one of the reasons we wanted to do the book was because the American 70s cinema has been so written about and so covered. And you're like, oh boy, isn't it kind of overrated? And it's not. Like, it really is like a great, rich thing. But I just rewatched Clute this week, which came out in 1971, and like everything in Clute is like, oh, that's about now. Like, this is just like, it is very much like talking about these very core. Like, I think what happens is when Hollywood is in a good place and it's both running on all cylinders and doing the stuff it does well, which is make really well made movies with big stars and big directors, but when it's also being challenged by like an outsider kind of movement, like the way that the indies were coming up in the 90s, they kind of have no choice but to make movies that are about things people actually care about. And when you look at the movies in 1999, it's like, and they have to do it in an entertaining way. It's like, all right, like, it's a competitive field. So Fight Club is an incredibly risky movie, but at the same time, like, it has something to say. It connects with audiences even if it doesn't do it in the theaters. And same with a movie like Election. It's like, these are movies that are about fundamentally like Election is basically about not only politics, but it's about how older men and younger women. It's about how men and women interact differently, how they're perceived differently. So you can watch these movies and find all these really interesting social things and commentary and ideas underneath, but they're also, because they're made by mostly really talented filmmakers and usually featuring big stars, they're also insanely entertaining, so lots of people see them. So, whereas now, we do occasionally get a big movie that feels like it's kind of speaking to the moment, like Sinners. But you don't get those like every 2 weeks. You get movies that are like, well, this is a movie about a family that rescues the world by, fighting Galactus, which is fun if you like that, but it's not.
Any movie in particular that you're thinking of when you say that?
Yeah,
That's a human truth.
It is a human truth. So, and that's not me like dinging comic book movies. Like, I have a framed Superman 2 poster in my house. I have a shitload of old Marvels next to my bed that I keep, but a lot of comic book movies just aren't about anything more fundamental than moving the action along. And Sinners again is like an example of a movie that's like, it is about vampires. It is also about a million other interesting things that are kind of relevant and timely to our moment. Or something like Eddington, which is not a huge hit, but like, that is a movie that's like using big stars and a big platform to actually kind of look at the world right now. But you need, like I said, you need Hollywood to be doing what it does best, and you need the kind of counterinsurgency of the indie movement and whatever constitutes the outside filmmakers to be able to do what they do best too. And in 1999, market forces and cultural forces just made that all happen. Some of this was coincidence, and some of it was like, it's where the industry was headed by the end of the 90s.
Is there a year in the 21st century that comes close?
I remember thinking, now I'm going to blank on there was, I think it was I'm trying to remember what year Green Room and 20th Century Women came out. Because there's a couple of movies that maybe that was 2019 or 2018. I honestly can't remember anymore. That was 2016. I do feel like there have been these years where I'm like, oh, this year is coming really close, but it's not quite like the cornucopia, I guess, that you would get in 99. But I also think we don't know yet. I mean, I think it's so, this project I'm doing for The Ringer next is about the movies of the George W. Bush years. And like a lot of these movies, you need 20 years away from George Bush to kind of look at that era and to kind of reevaluate the movies of that time and to kind of be like, okay, what was going on and what was this movie kind of saying, even if it was sort of subconsciously. So I think in 10 years, we'll start looking back at the late 2010s and maybe the early 2020s, and we're going to see patterns and things. Also, some people in 1999 were like, oh, wow, this is a great movie year. People weren't saying in 1999, isn't it crazy how it predicted the future? Because the future hadn't happened yet.
That's a lunatic says that.
Yeah, you get arrested for saying that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like we didn't know that 9/11 was going to happen. We didn't know that Fight Club was going to feel like this edge of the apocalypse kind of movie when you watched it after 9/11.
I think too what you were saying about the mainstream and the indies like sort of coming together is so important. I think that we say on here a lot, like every movie year is a great year. It's just that you have to, for some years you have to do the digging. You have to like get in there. You have to see a bunch of stuff, and it's just not going to be that stuff that premieres on HBO Max or whatever, or made by Netflix. And that in that year, it felt like this pinnacle of the, I don't know, counterculture becoming mainstream. And all of these movies were popular and for adults. And talked about so much in a way where like it wasn't. There were blockbusters back then, obviously, but all of these smaller movies could become hits just through word of mouth, and I feel like that's so much harder to do because for a million reasons. People stop going to movie theaters, and we're inundated with content so often that how could anything get propped up by word of mouth? But that year, it just felt like everything was so thoughtful that we got to see, and it was readily available. Like it was playing in, not just art houses in the major cities, but in every theater across America. Yeah.
And I think, in terms of years of this century, I've always wanted to do something on 2007, and in a way, The Ringer show kind of allowed me to do that. But if you look at 2007, it is a pretty phenomenal movie year. Assassination of Jesse James, Michael Clayton, There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men, which wins Best Picture.
Zodiac.
But a lot of the movies, a lot of the movies are just very bleak. Whereas 99, you also kind of have these brighter movies. I know Election is a dark comedy, but it is also a comedy. I mean, you have these you have a huge run of teen high school movies in 1999. So 2007, I think, is a year that you really do feel like the movies are speaking to you. But because things have been so bad, what it's saying is, boy, things really suck. It's like, and there are some upbeat, fun, light movies in 2007. But it is like you look at that year and you're like, like Zodiac is 2007. You're like, man, this is like a 24-hour marathon of like America in a tough place.
The other thing too, and
Zodiac though.
This might just be because of my age and how old I was then, but it really feels like that it's a special year because of how many movies people would watch at that time and be like, "Oh, that's my personality now." Whether it was The Matrix, from The Matrix to Being John Malkovich to Star Episode 1 to Election, there was all these movies of like Office Space. That's who I am now, and that's who I'm going to be for the next 10 to 25 years.
I hated in high school when you could tell the teacher who watched Election and said, "That's my personality now."
Yeah. That's the teacher you avoided or reported.
Yep.
It's funny. Kids always know who that teacher is, and they're just like, they tell other kids, like, "Hey, avoid that person," and then just like they never tell any adults.
What up, Mr. Saviors? Chemistry.
My personality gets so wet.
But we are here to talk about one very specific 1999 movie, and what we like to do is first we like to talk about our history with the movies and then talk about our updated general impressions of them. So Ryan, I'm going to start with you. What is your history with Three Kings?
I was super excited. I thought that this was going to be a blockbuster. May have bought my ticket a week early for this one too. I was at that point, I was the kind of kid who was like, "Oh, Sundance Darling, making a big budget movie." So like I was so jacked. And so like for this guy to make one movie that I loved, a movie that I liked, and then now to be making an action movie, I was so thrilled. And I thought back then, I won't get into now, but back then I thought it delivered in every way. And it's because if you were a movie dork, to see explosions and moving the camera around real fast and doing cool editing tricks, that was it. Like, what else do you need in a movie? So, and
that's a movie, baby.
Yeah, that is called movies. And this time I was a little bit nervous, especially because of how the director's career has gone since then. This isn't going to make me go out and watch Joy, me watching Three Kings most recently, but
how about Madden?
I'll probably see Madden. I mean,
right?
Based on the video game?
David,
based on the video game starring Nick Cage.
David O. Russell and Nick Cage is a combo that was supposed to happen here and a combo that needs to happen eventually. So I'll probably see Madden. But you can tell from this movie why, for a little bit, people were putting up with his wild, wild antics.
Wow, the antics. I was surprised. Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to get into some of the antics. In fact, I think we will. Mike, what is your history with Three Kings besides celebrating Three Kings Day every January 6th? Hey, that's why you celebrate January 6th, right, big guy?
Yeah, because I love the Three Kings.
Cool.
Anytime there's Three Kings, I'm there.
Dude, honestly.
And this was a movie that had been on my to-watch list for, 30 years? Is this 30 years later almost? And hey, I loved the trailer. Loved the people involved at the time. Always forget it's David O. Russell because I was early on the fuck that guy train and was proven correctly, even when most of the world shouted me.
Yeah, you're certainly getting a point for that.
I was baffled by the positive reaction to Silver Linings Playbook. So I watched it this week. That is my history with it, and there are things I liked in this movie.
Okay, Brian, what is your history with Three Kings?
I was very, as Ryan said, I was also very heavily invested in like, the Sundance to big studio trajectory of all these filmmakers in the 90s. I saw it opening weekend. I had been very excited because I worked at Entertainment Weekly and I was starting to hear from, I mean, I was a tiny little bug at Entertainment Weekly. I was like an intern, but I had heard some mumbling in the office that it was very good. They had screened it. I knew they had a reporter on set, and I knew that EW was also reporting about some of the tension on the set, so I was very excited. I loved it. It was actually, I don't know if any of you lived in New York in the late 90s, but there was a very weird period where we had something called Urban Fetch, which was this crazy delivery service where you could order anything you wanted and have it brought to your house that day and
What?
not to pay any shipping or anything. It was like a pre-Amazon. It made no financial sense. It was the peak.com.
Yes.
And one of the first things I remember, like when Three Kings, the Tuesday came out on DVD, like I had a messenger delivered to me at the office, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I can't believe I don't have to go out and buy this DVD. It's being brought to me. So I've always loved the movie. It's, when I put the book out, a lot of times I would get asked to like make a list of my 5 favorite 1999 movies, and I would always change it because it generally really does change. I would say Three Kings was on almost every one of those top 5 lists. There's a lot about it that appeals to me as both as a great piece of like 90s filmmaking and as a really interesting subversive work of like walking into a movie studio with like a bomb strapped to your chest and being like, oh, you wanted me to make something commercial with your giant TV star from ER? Well, here I'm just gonna, and then halfway through it just blows everything up,
Yes.
So I admire that. I admire the kind of fuck you-ness of this entire endeavor.
And is that still how you feel about it?
Yes, I watched it a bunch of times for the book. I interviewed David O. Russell. I interviewed Catherine Hardwicke. I was I gave it a whole chapter, or maybe I think I did a chapter with this in the Limey. But it was a movie that I was definitely on my top 10, top 5, 99 list always.
It's a great chapter of your book.
Oh, thanks.
I have to say, it's very, very entertaining read.
I just so everybody knows, our Urban Fetch on the West Coast was called Pink Dot. You guys remember that?
Featured in Magnolia. That's in Magnolia,
Oh, yeah,
Ryan. That's
that's
where he
right.
gets those 3 porno magazines.
Yes. And the lady's like, do you still want the other stuff? Or did you just call for porno?
I want a porn sandwich. I need my white bread and mayonnaise.
I need the bread. Okay. Mike, I was getting some glimmers when you were talking about it. You have no real history of this movie, so what is your current opinion generally?
It's hard because I had 3 decades of wanting to see this movie, so too much built up in my own head, and then being friends with Ryan and hearing that for all the reasons I'm dumb that he likes to tell me, one of the reasons I'm dumb is to having not watched this yet, and then loving 2 of the 3 leads, and being very fascinated with which version of Marky Mark we're gonna get every movie, and he gave us every version. I fucking loved Mark Wahlberg in this movie. Do you want the super cool, annoying, broy entourage Marky Mark? He's here. Do you want the I'm going to whisper and hug everybody? He's also here. And then, Clooney it's all about charm. And I'm fascinated. Big blockbuster seeming. And we talked about years ago with our Come and See episode how few actual anti-war movies there are. Even the anti-war movies eventually would be like, war's cool though, isn't it? Sometimes it just looks dope. And I was pretty surprised that this one might have pulled that off. That war sucks, and I think the movie stays with that.
Yeah, we should talk
Ryan,
about that.
how about now? Your updated opinion.
Oh, I mean, there was a setback too when I realized that this was not one of our all-time Irish directors, but O is his middle initial, so that was devastating. But
Top of the morning, too.
I watched this movie knowing who the person is now this week, and then also like there's this thing with movies that try to tackle this stuff, like what Mike is saying is like, are you doing a good job, but are you doing a consistent job? Are you what are you trying to say, and how are you trying to say it consistently, or is there stuff that you sort of lose the thread on because this looks cooler, or because you just don't have what it takes to tell the story? And I gotta say, I think this movie fucking rules.
Yeah, I will say that in my history is I saw it with you, Ryan, back in 1999. We would drive down to Irvine, which is like 30 minutes away from us, but it was the biggest theater around. And we would drive like a week ahead of time to buy tickets for movies. And this is one of the times we did that. We took a little field trip over to get the tickets. And we were all blown away. We all loved it. And I felt like 99%.
1999?
There's still some little... 1999% that way. There are still some little things that give me pause. Sure. Some parts of it that I want to put under the microscope tonight, but I think it manages to really walk a fine line between, commenting on war and showing war in a way that does not too often celebrate it. But we are definitely going to get into this and even more after this short break. Set against the backdrop of the American withdrawal from Iraq, the first one, Three Kings is at times a gritty war movie, at times a wacky comedy, and at times a political satire. Picking and rewriting a script about a heist at the end of the Iraq War, writer-director David O. Russell lampoons the idea of a short, effective war that leaves little damage. 3, kind of 4, I guess, if you count Spike freaking Jones playing PFC Conrad Vig, U.S. soldiers attempt to steal some of Saddam Obama Hussein's stolen Kuwaiti gold. But along the way, they learn that the rules of war may be muddled, but the rules of the human soul are actually a lot more clear. Because, as it turns out, when America kills people in wars, most of those people are just your average Marquis Mark. Small-time people trying to live their lives, maintain their businesses, and raise their families. So obviously we have to talk about Three Kings as a pro-war or anti-war movie. But is it a pro-Gulf War movie, Ryan?
I think just watching the movie in a vacuum, without any sort of metatextual stuff, which that's where we should go, right? I think that it is anti-war and anti-Gulf War because we watch the characters slowly, but like over and over again. Like it's really hard to realize all the damage that was done, and they're constantly saying, "Oh, you heard that our president said that? Whoopsies!" And so, what we went in there for is so confusing to these characters who were involved, and what they do now and why they did it is like that's such a question of the movie. Not that it's proposing subtextually, but like the actual characters are talking about it, that I have to think that like this is sort of and Brian can speak to this way better than I can, sort of our newest, most modern Vietnam movie of like, what?
Mike, do you agree with that question?
What? I second the what.
But is there a way you could make an argument that this is somehow it seems anti-war? It shows war as hell, right? People being killed for no reason, people being accidentally shot when they shouldn't be, guns going off just all the time because people have bad trigger discipline. But is it saying something that you could that argues for the Gulf War at all? Specifically the Gulf War.
The longer we hang out with the civilians that our crew is hanging out with, and we're like, they're people too, which is, hey, really good lesson for everybody to learn around the world. They're people too. The most important people who should learn that lesson, I do believe, are specifically American soldiers. Speaking of, as a former one who heard disgusting stuff, they're people too. And so there's that. It's like, well, they were quote unquote trying to save these people, except I think the movie does a good job at being like, no, they fucking weren't. that was a side mission that they said was their main mission. That was not at all what anybody cared about, given that the military folks at the top who show up at the end were trying to stop that from happening. And I think that's, if at that point after a while you're like, well, they're making good points, maybe we should have been there and save people. I think a Russell and crew is like, no. At the end, we're going to do this. And the villains of the movie are going to be like the people who, sure, Clooney and co, our Three Kings, should be court-martialed, but maybe we should save some innocents first. And so for the military to be like, no, that doesn't matter. We're going to let that guy die. Everything, like it only the strict rules. Yeah, I think I was shocked how well it did.
What do you think, Brian? Do you think that there's a way in which this movie argues that like America is like needed in this region in some way?
That's interesting. I mean, I wonder if it even is thinking that far ahead. I mean, I think, you have to kind of look at the movie through Clooney because he's kind of the only grown-up character in the movie by design. Like he's in charge of these knuckleheads, but he's also kind of, he's as insulated from all this as anyone else. He's the one who wants to get money, and he wants to get this and get out of there. But he does toward the end, he does slowly have this kind of deflating oh shit realization. And they don't make him like they don't do. If this was a 50s movie, he would have been played by like Spencer Tracy, and he would have heroically lifted like a child into a helicopter. You know what I mean? Like this is very indebted to kind of older war movies, and obviously to Treasure Sierra Madre. But I don't think it lets any of the American characters like off the hook. And I think it kind of like the resolution is really, you can look at it as very downbeat. I mean, did anyone learn anything? You know, which is kind of a, you know, I don't know whether these characters, once they get back to their lives, with their regular lives, if they're going to be any less insulated from this war as they were while they were fighting it, you know? And I think that's what's so interesting about this movie. It's like, it's three guys who are in the middle of this conflict that they're kind of ambivalent, or at least not even super intellectually interested in why they're there. And like, that is also kind of how America felt about the Middle East as soon as the Operation Desert Storm was over. It was like, hey, we won. This is great. This is unlike Vietnam. We're at it. We're in and out in 6 weeks or whatever. And so let's not think about this for 8 more years, which is why I think when Three Kings came out in 99, it was like, oh shit, like we kind of all forgot. We did all kind of forget about this. Like, and I think that's one of the reasons why I still can't believe it got made, because it wasn't a movie about Vietnam or Korea or any even kind of in the past conflict. It was a conflict that was still, the aftershocks were still being felt pretty regularly in that region. But I don't know if David O. Russell is the kind of person who wants to argue about U.S. specific policy through his movies. I think he's really interested in these characters and what it's like to be American. And also he made a lot of this as a response to what he thought was a really kind of violent culture. And the desensitization that was going on in the 90s to violence. And but whether or not you can argue that it makes the case that Americans should have been doing more or helping more, I don't know. I can't quite see a way in to read that, but I certainly feel that it does capture a lot of like America really needs to think about a conflict, not just in the 2 weeks before they go in, but through the entire conflict.
And that's the thing, yeah. Because I do think I think there is a case to be made that the very end of the movie, the American army is needed to help those people. To help those particular Iraqis be free.
Right.
And there's so many times where Iraqis are like, you can't leave us now. You can't leave us now. And I feel like in a way that almost argues for like, we shouldn't have, as a reaction to Vietnam, been like, we're going to get it. We're going to adios out of here as soon as possible. Right. But there's always, isn't there, I think what brings it around finally though, is that there is always a disastrous withdrawal.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, we stayed forever. Disastrous withdrawal. Afghanistan, we stayed forever. Disastrous withdrawal. The crimes that are committed when you withdraw your army, and the people you abandon when you withdraw your army, all that damage needs to be reckoned with before you ever start the conflict that puts your army in another country. Right? Like it's always going to be super messy to leave.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that helped you out, that fraternized with you. And when the other bad guys come and you leave and they take over again, they're going to track down each one of those people that helped you, and they're going to really harm them deeply. But that doesn't mean you stay forever. It means you don't go in unless you have some fucking plan for what to do, and you can articulate what it is and like why anybody should care about it.
Which has never stopped anybody before from going in without a plan. Like literally ever.
And luckily, everyone who saw Three Kings walked out and decided we're never going to get involved in Iraq again, and we never did. So we all learned our lesson.
Thank goodness for that. We all took the right message away from that movie.
That's why I think it does such a good job of, and we can get into the whole John Ridley part of it as far as the script goes, but that's why I think it does such a good idea it is such a good idea to turn it into a heist movie, which sort of tricks us into entertainment, and then we see what we learn. Because it wasn't until this viewing where I was like, oh, gold is oil. So they're like, let's get the gold no matter what. And then like, oh, this is fucking affecting people. But for a country to affect a country, that is just beyond our movie watching brains and our government's governing brains to ever think about. So if we take the macro into a micro and we say, no, these four kings and gold.
It's like a Musketeers thing, really, if you think about it.
One of you doesn't count as a king. But...
yeah, that's always a bad sign. Wait, there's 4 of us? Why is it 3 kings? Don't worry about it.
It's rank.
Spoiler
PFCs
alert title.
Are never going to be kings.
But yeah, to have them want the gold more than anything, and then see something that most people don't, most countries don't, that the people might be more important than the gold or the oil is, I think, hits so much harder than telling a massive story about a massive war.
Well, I forget who said it, but like a person getting murdered is a story. City getting murdered is statistics. Like I'm misquoting for sure, but yeah,
that's Stalin.
It's
I
so
think,
many
you
numbers.
Butchered that big guy. I'm going to give the other ones points.
Nobody's ever butchered more than Stalin.
I said I'm not going to say this right, so I feel like that saves me a little. But
I think it's one death is a tragedy.
Thank you.
A million
sure.
deaths is a statistic.
Oh, and Greg, for the rest of this
boom.
podcast, I'm not going to say anything right.
That's a guy with 8 bills on his conscience, by the way.
And he was saying those are just statistics. But like,
yeah, dude, don't worry about those.
Anytime if you're trying to write any universal story, write a specific story. Tell us about these people in this, because if you're like, I'm going to try to speak to everyone, fuck you, your dog shit thing will suck. And I think he told very specific stories about very specific people here.
And the soldiers, you something you said, Mike, that I want to like sort of zoom in on, because I feel like this movie is examining specifically the moral landscape of the actual boots on the ground soldiers. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we see these 3 kings go from what you mentioned, which is they use like literal slurs, and they talk about like what slurs they should be able to use. Ice Cube is like a little touchy about some of the slurs that like seem to have references to slurs against black people, but he was like, you could use these other slurs instead. And they all, I think except for George Clooney, they all kind of use them interchangeably in the beginning of the movie. But then there is this like, they have a moral awakening, right?
Yeah. I think all of them in different ways. And maybe some of them die before they get there.
But no, I mean, honestly, okay, Conrad Vig, he does the ululations, which is silly. He's not supposed to, because that's just for ladies to do. But then also he's like, dude, if like I'm going to die here, would you please put me near a sacred shrine here? Like he has his body interred in the soil. That seems to be like he is the one that really like, I don't know, he embraces it like in a kind of totalistic way, I guess. Okay, but the other potential like qualm with this is, does this movie really avoid badass action that makes us go, hell yeah, this is what we came to see?
There are a lot of people jumping away from
up.
explosions in this movie.
And I think the intent was to take there's certain parts where it gets like cool war, and instead of speeding up, that's when we slow down. And it feels like the intent was to be like, you want to hear the explosion? You're not gonna. I'm not trying to titillate you right now. I want to take the power out of it. But instead, people are like, whoa, slow-mo. Look how slow that explosion is now. The bullets are firing so slow now. And so it's just like, I think we are dumb, violent animals who are going to be tickled by that. But it does feel like the maker's intent was to be like, no, I don't want a normal action movie where that's sick.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the opening shot, no pun intended, but I mean, I think early on in the movie where Mark Wahlberg shoots that guy, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a shoot 'em up Mark Wahlberg movie, and it's a horrific death. I mean, it's absolutely, and I also think, we can talk about this scene at another point, but like, I remember seeing the theater and seeing that scene where the bullet goes through the body, and I was like, this is not fun. Like, this is not like, that is a really remarkable scene that I think, I do think it's possible to kind of balance really great action with also being kind of repulsed by certain actions. I mean, you could argue Fight Club does that kind of in some ways pretty well. But this movie to me, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I think the individual action scenes are exciting, but I'm not like cheering afterwards. Like it's they're like really.
Can I give one moment? Can I just give one moment? Because I think everybody is totally right, and I think especially Brian, what you said about like those interior shots of the body. Like, I mean, and this is people have said as like some way to handle our current trouble with gun violence, that people should see what high caliber rounds actually do to bodies, or like what the bullets from AR-15s, which tumble as they're shot, what they really do to bodies, because people don't know, right? And so this is kind of like showing us the inside, right? What we don't normally see, and it disgusts us and repulses us, and we are turned off by that violence. But there's a part where Ice Cube is handed a Nerf football that has an explosive strapped to it, and he uses that football to dispatch a helicopter. And I have to tell you, that is just a cool ass moment, and there's no way you could watch that and be like, "War's fucking bad."
Right. It's the best. It's the best action scene with a thrown football since the last Boy Scout. Greg, is that what you're setting me up to say?
Yep. Yes, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, we have to talk about The Last Boy Scout because this is like fitting into a proud tradition of filmic helicopter takedowns.
The other thing I sort of noticed about the action
football
scenes is that there's basically 4 set pieces and 2 locations. And so they go to the first spot and realize that, oh, fuck, we missed the 2 guys. And then they go back in this Gulf War. They go back to the same spot. And then later they go, but Mark Wahlberg gets captured. So they have to go back to the same spot. And I would say bravo to that.
That's so clever. Yeah. We have to go back to that same set, the one that we already built and decorated and everything. We got to get back there.
But the fact, it's interesting is just thinking about this now. What you said about the football scene, it's like this whole movie, the making of it, and the story of the movie in itself is like this is about tension. It's about tension between what you think you've signed up for and what you realize. It's about tension between trying to make a really kind of gritty anti-violence movie from a guy whose previous movie it cost $7 million and making it for Warner Brothers, which was like the least subversive of the major studios. I mean, Warner Brothers didn't even have an indie arm at this point. Like, you're trying to make a big crowd-pleasing movie with a huge TV star, but you're also trying to make a point. And also, that's probably also what led to the tension behind the scenes of the movie. I mean, it was everything in this movie is working at odds, which is what makes it so exciting, I think. And the fact that, it's like, I could see David O. Russell just being like, this is an anti-war movie, but the action scenes are going to kick ass. Like, that's, because they have to, because he wants to make it, he wants to shoot an exciting action sequence, like most filmmakers want to at one point in their career.
Brian, something you put in your, I think this comes from your book, which is that the movies of '99 are like, hey, you're going to see Keanu Reeves in a trench coat. Hey, you're going to see these people destroying a printer. Hey, you're going to see like these cool action shots from the first Gulf War. And then when they get you in the theater, they're like, okay, here's the nature of life. Here's what's morally complicated about all this. And it's like, you're already here. You're already sitting down. Yeah. Now comes the philosophy.
And it turns out that's actually great for word of mouth. Like that does make people go and tell other people, go see this movie because it will blow you away. I think we have to talk about with the macro coming into the micro. If you do it well, what comes with that is stakes. And so when Ice Cube is like throwing a football and then diving away from a explosion, or more importantly, a torture scene with Mark Wahlberg, it doesn't hold the same effect if this is 3 Kings 7 Dead Reckoning, or if there was no time spent getting to know these 4 kings. Like, that was all done purposefully, and it just changes it, So the preview can look cool, but it's not the same effect once you get to know them.
And it's getting to them, and it's also how each action sequence ends. It's not, they don't stay walking slow-mo, flicking a cigarette, and high five. Something bad happens at the end of every one of the action scenes. Even times they're like, whoa, that actually was pretty cool, and everybody's safe. Wait 3 more seconds.
The only celebrating that happens is at the very beginning when it's the end of the war and nobody saw action. And that's when they're all partying and going crazy because we're going home.
And the most important fights they're involved in are the water bottle fights.
And like setting up more tables. Like, whose job is it to just keep running in and setting up a new table because somebody just got tackled through that table?
Her job is tables, right? Well, that is all the time we have for this segment. Let's do a quick score check-in. Ryan, you have 15 points. Mike, you have 8 points. And Brian, you have 19 points.
All right.
To start off with. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the career of one George Clooney. Every once in a while, we come across an actor where we have to just simply go over their career because of how important they are. And in this movie, that is definitely one Marky... Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's not. It's not Marky Mark. It's, of course, George Clooney. This movie gives us the opportunity to really celebrate George Clooney. It was made at the time when he was like still transitioning from ER doc to Hollywood heartthrob. And so we're going to chart that progression by looking at little phases of his career and seeing what is the most distinct George Clooney movie. What is the movie that makes you, when you hear the name George Clooney, you think this movie?
Can we do a bracket?
It's going to be a bracket, Ryan. It's going to be a bracket. It's going to be a series of movies.
I was ready to draft.
Great art demands that it be put into a bracket.
I'm sorry, Greg. I feel a little bit of sarcasm, but how much more would you watch the Oscars if the whole thing was a bracket of like the 16 best movies? That was the show.
Honestly, it's an exciting format. I wouldn't be on the show if I didn't like the bracket format.
And the people being nominated for each award have to just sit in a circle while the Academy is screaming at each other around them about why one sucked and one is great.
I will say, if you think brackets are ridiculous, I think that brackets are only as ridiculous as comparing any piece of art to any other piece of art to determine like which is better. If you're already doing that, you might as well do it in bracket form. It makes no difference. Well, let's go to the bracket. Starting early in his career, the first movie that we have on our bracket, 1996, Seth Gecko from the movie From Dusk Till Dawn versus 1997 Batman in Batman and Robin. When you hear the name George Clooney, which of these two movies is liable to pop into your head first?
I was thinking about like how important he's been, and we've only, I believe, have moodied one George Clooney movie before this. So he hasn't been a huge part of this show, but in my life, I do think that he was a draw. There's something incredibly likable about him, and I do think that is an effortless cool in a way that is different from, say, his contemporary Brad Pitt or his contemporaries, Paul Newman or Humphrey Bogart. I think I'm not sure about the range so much.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's a movie star, not an actor, and I mean that with respect.
And I want you to shout out when you're like, "Oh, this is out of character for him in this role," because I don't know if we're going to say that tonight.
I feel like the closest would be Seth Gecko.
Yeah,
I really feel like From Dusk Till Dawn, that's like his most distinct.
He wasn't like defined yet, even though he came out of the gate pretty fucking defined. But
I don't want to like knock. Batman fans are so hard to talk to, and I know Christopher Nolan and Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves all have their specific type of cool, but I don't think Bruce Wayne or Batman is actually cool.
Yeah.
And this is the least cool. I think this is Seth Gecko. I mean, name like is proof, but like in a runaway, because this is where we got introduced to that whole tilted head above it all, but I still like you kind of Clooney cool.
And it's Clooney as his biggest villain, a disgusting fucking billionaire who wants to hit mentally ill people versus Seth Gecko, who's just a robber, I guess.
Who's just protecting his rapist brother who likes feet.
That's
his character does.
His character. He just never left character. He methoded so hard.
Well, let's take it to vote. Mike, who is it for you?
Look, who am I to tell Clooney he's wrong, and he still will apologize for Batman to this day. So I'm not going to tell him no. I would love to see in a stronger director. I think Clooney would crush as Bruce Wayne, but this is not that movie. Seth Gecko,
and then somebody else like Lou Ferrigno comes in for Batman.
Yes.
All right, Ryan, do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Okay. In 1998, we were given the character Jack Foley from Out of Sight, and then later in 1999, we were given Madge Archie Gates from Three Kings. Oh, that must be
Madge Taylor Green?
Major Archie Gates.
I think we get a lot of shit on this show. We get a lot of emails for like, why do the bracket if you're just going to pick the movie that is the point of the night?
Why send an email if you're just going to be a little jerk?
Put that in that comment so everybody can see it on Apple.
If Jack Foley doesn't win this battle, I'm gonna fucking freak out. I'm gonna throw a C4 covered football at both your heads.
If which one? My brain glitched for
the main
one
character
time
from Out of Sight.
Out of Sight. Okay, I didn't hear the one part that feels important.
This is a tough draw for both of these movies, and the reason for the season is very much Three Kings. But
and Out of Sight, Out of Mind. You know.
Do you know?
Yeah, does everybody know?
Mike, what is your vote?
I've never seen Out of Sight.
You've never seen Wow. Do yourself a favor. Sit your ass down and watch Jack Foley in Out of Sight.
If we can pull the curtain back a little bit, I am hosting next season, and I almost picked 1998, so Mike would have to watch Out of Sight.
And I won't until you contractually obligate me to.
Yep, that's how it works nowadays. If we're not doing a show about it, we're not going to watch it.
Archie Gates is cool, but not special, is what I would say that role is.
So, Mike, you're going with the one that you've seen?
Let's go for the drama. And yes, I'm saying Archie Gates, Madge, as I like to call her.
Ryan.
Jack Foley, Out of Sight.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Jack Foley, Out of Sight. It's not always just going to be the movie we're doing that day. It's the guy that gets to move forward. I mean, Out of Sight, that's very close to the answer to the question, what movie do you first think of when you think of George Clooney?
Or the answer to the question, what does Mike have to say first before he, for no reason, says out of time?
I said out of mind. An actual phrase, out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of time? What is that?
No, I'm the idiot here. No,
what am
I'm
I,
the
Billy
idiot.
Pilgrim? What am I, jumping around? 2000 gave us Everett from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But it also gave us Billy Tyne from The Perfect Storm.
Do you guys see what's happening here with, and there's some movies that we couldn't include in our 16, but I think this was from Roger Ebert's review of Three Kings, of like, fuck, I'm done with the ER. Things aren't going great. Calls Soderbergh, he calls the Coen brothers, and he calls David O. Russell and says, I need to be in these movies. And that is definitely career changing.
Yeah, I mean, he worked so hard to be in this movie. The actor, or the part for Archie Gates was originally supposed to be for like an actor like 10, 15 years older than George Clooney.
I heard that like Clint Eastwood said no.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Sure, I'm going to do that.
Nobody that old has ever been in the military.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Ryan, are you a fan of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I think it's second tier Coen brothers.
Yeah,
I know
right.
that a lot of people like it, but I think that this is it. This is the other George Clooney. There's two modes. There's cool as shit and I'm dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
And this is our introduction to dumb as fuck.
Are you sweet and suave, or does it feel like some dandy could punch you down and say, and stay out of Woolworths?
Do you care about your pomade more than your children?
Yes.
So, Mike, what do you think? What's it going to be?
Even the people in A Perfect Storm forgot that movie existed. I saw that movie opening weekend probably. Fuck that movie. It's Oh Brother.
Let's face it,
Do you remember
everyone in that movie, including Marky Mark, is completely upstaged by Big Wave.
Do you
Big Wave
guys?
stole that movie.
John C. Reilly was in it instead of Ice Cube. The Three Kings should have came back, and then they would have fought.
Should
that
we get
storm.
the band back together and this time steal the ocean?
Or instead we could hear John C. Reilly's terrible Boston accent, and for some reason Marky Mark's terrible Boston accent. Bro, you're born
from there.
I forgot how we talk, okay? Every time he said okay in Three Kings, I got so rowdy, dude.
Or say
so
hi to
we
your mom.
agree it's going to be Everett.
Say hi to him. Yes.
2001 gave us Nothing But Laughs with Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11.
This is our Moody pick. Or we did this movie.
Yes.
I think this is our only previous Clooney.
Okay, yeah, this is the Clooney we already did. And then 2002, he played Kelvin in Solaris, a movie that I cannot believe I haven't seen. Just watching the trailer, I was like, but wait, I was watching movies in 2002. This is basically like Sphere, if the Sphere was a planet. It has like several of the actors I really... Like, how have I not seen this movie? What's going on?
Yeah, I would expect that to be only Greg has seen.
Yes!
Soderbergh, who is my favorite director, remade a Tarkovsky, who I say is my favorite director, movie, and I did not see it either.
I have to see both of these movies. I guess I'll start with the original since that's probably like the good one. But just the premise of this, there's a weird planet that they're investigating, and it seems to be making people's like dreams and memories kind of tangible. Whoa. Like if you like remember your son is there on the space station with you, and then people aren't really up to that, and it starts driving them a little batty. It sounds like the perfect movie. Ocean's 11 is literally the perfect movie, and I've seen it.
I gotta say, if you're in space, you're gonna remember the sun. It's fucking right there.
So bright.
Hot.
It's right there. It's right there. So are we saying Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11, gentlemen?
Yeah.
All right. 2005 gave us Fred Friendly from Good Night and Good Luck versus 2005's Bob Barnes from Syriana. Similar-ish movies, and then the alliterative character names. Come on, George. You're making things tough for us here.
Your name's not George Clooney. Like, you don't
He
have
wishes
to
it
do
was.
Good Night and Good Luck is like the CBS show that wants to talk about McCarthyism and really like blow that up, right? And Syriana is like the world's running out of oil, so we have to keep fucking around in the Middle East, right?
Honestly, I don't remember shit about Syriana. I remember like it was Traffic-esque. Like there was multiple storylines. Couldn't tell you one, including George Clooney's. I have a theory that if he did not win the Oscar for Syriana, it would not be in his top 16 movie roles. Something else would be on here.
Find someone who has both seen Syriana and can remember anything about it. I feel like it's a name we know, but nobody has any recollection of the movie.
Find you someone who can do both.
And marry that ass. Good Night, Good Luck. Not only he is a supporting actor, but it's so him. It's not just directed by, but like all of his pathos and ethos and logos.
Love of Nescafe.
Legos.
Love of developing a satellite to fly over the Sudan. All right, so what's it going to be? Fred Friendly from Good Night and Good Luck or Bob Barnes from Syriana, gentlemen?
Jesus. Fred Friendly.
Fred Friendly. Ryan?
Fred Friendly.
Fred a Friendly. 2007 gave us Michael Clayton from the movie Michael Clayton, again from the Syriana collection of movies where George Clooney's like standing in an office and being like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And then people being like, I don't think you understand how dangerous it is to be asking these questions. And he's like, I don't care. I'm going to get an answer. Versus 2009's Mr. Fox, where he again plays the titular
Not
role.
that different.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. From,
What the cuss, etc.
Would Michael Clayton be better if it was the fantastic Michael Clayton?
I would like a switcheroo here. I'd like, like I was saying to my wife earlier, I think we should do a little switcheroo here. See if that spices things up a little bit in these movies.
I watched Mr. Fox recently. He's amazing in it. Michael Clayton. I think Michael Clayton is an all-timer. Like, it's part of the 2007. I don't think we mentioned that when we were talking to Brian about.
He did. No, he said
greatest year.
Yeah,
he did.
He said Michael Clayton.
And also voice acting. I don't know if does that get any demerits at all.
No, what? Only if they're bad at it.
Yeah,
well,
only if they totally. And he's actually so good at it. I kind of feel the way you do, though, Ryan. Michael Clayton feels like a lot bigger and a lot more associated with him. What do you think, Mike?
I agree. I've seen neither of these, but Michael Clayton's stock is rising. But both of these are movies people yell at me for not having watched.
Depending on what
do I hate George Clooney?
No, dude, I had the same thing. I've missed a bunch of these movies of his, and I'm like, why? This guy is an actor I think of myself as really liking. He's kind of a human being that I really like. Actually, he's done some pretty laudable things.
This is the time of the podcast where I remind both of you that we're on a movie show. So keep watching those movies, please.
Keep watching those movies.
I'm out. The minute somebody says that, I stop podcasting. That's my off button.
Ryan, what do you say?
And Michael Clayton.
Yeah, Mike?
Michael Clayton.
Yeah, right. Got to go with the guy the same first name as you.
Whoa.
2009 gave us Clooners as Ryan Bingham in
That's my
Up in
name,
the Air.
bitches.
Oh. 2011 gave us Matt King, and honestly, every time I hear the name of this movie, I get a little depressed. It's The Descendants.
Now, Matt King has the same last name as Greg. So
Greg King, I love it. The Descendants, of course, makes me sad because this is the movie where we finally were like, no, we really have to stop casting white people as people of Asian descent, right?
Oh, no, it would happen again
Are
later.
you thinking of Aloha?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking I've got this movie totally.
The Descendants does take place on Hawaii.
Okay, but nobody is like trying to play.
I don't think so. This is about a white family that had land, and they're all like fighting over who gets it, and some of them want to sell it. And one of them is like, should any of us who look like us actually have it? They're all like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, don't say that. Yeah, honestly, when you go to Hawaii, you're like, this is such a beautiful place. And then you're like, should we not be should we let this place just be free and should we leave them alone?
I think that Descendants is, I think, a better movie, but I think and holds up better despite or because of everything that Mike just said. But I think that Up in the Air there is no one who could play this person.
Mhm.
He is a firer
Mhm.
and like going through it and being that person in the office of being like, we should do things different. And his boss is saying, no, we can't. See Greg's bit from like 4 minutes ago. I think that this is like kind of the ultimate Clooney role.
He has nothing and is nothing in this movie. He's like a completely empty suit.
And loves it until he realizes, wait, that's bad. And so you get to see him do the arc of dirtbag Clooney to Syriana office Clooney.
It's not just has nothing, but like his job is traveling as well.
Yeah.
So like there isn't even a home to go to.
Basically, everything is just up in the air.
I saw that movie and went, I want that life except for the firing people part. As a young man when it came out, I did not get that wasn't the part that was necessarily bad about that life.
Well, what's it going to be, gentlemen? Is it going to be Ryan Bingham from Up in the Air or Matt King from The Descendants?
When a character's got your same first name, you got to go with it.
When a character's got the name of somebody you've fallen in love with, you got to go with it.
You fell in love with Shelby Bingham?
Yep. Bingham, I hardly know a ham.
Hey-o. All right, in our last matchup of this first round, we have 2011 Governor Mike Morris
He plays the whole government.
from the Shut Up Mike from The Ides of March versus Matt Kowalski in 2013's Gravity.
I don't
Ryan,
really remember.
Ides of March is another one of these movies that's like, this should be a huge movie based on who's in it.
Yeah. One of those like, can we still get adults to the theaters movies? Ryan Gosling and George Clooney are fighting. Gravity, I think, is great, and he's not the star of that either. But not only do I think it's a great movie, I think it's a great Clooney performance. And I always go back to the Tina and Amy joke from the Golden Globes, I think, when they hosted, where it's like George Clooney would rather float away into space than spend one more minute talking to an actress his own age.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Gravity for me.
I feel like he is cast perfectly in Gravity. Like bringing him in 2013 to play like the older astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment where after he floats away, where he comes back and the audience is like, how is this guy back? A very, very good part of Gravity. Ides of March. Yeah. I mean, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ryan Gosling, like Paul Giamatti.
Damn.
This movie should be fucking huge in this circle, but
are Paul Giamatti and Philip Seymour Hoffman playing the same role, but scene to scene they're switching like as if it were a play? Are they legally allowed to be in the same movie?
Are they American Buffaloing?
They are American Buffaloing. So Ryan, what's it going to be? Government Mike Morris from The Ides of March or Matt Kowalski from Gravity?
Honestly, George Clooney, just not what astronauts are actually like, but what they feel like in my head. He should be an astronaut in every movie. It's Gravity.
Mike, do you agree?
I'm defying Gravity and going with Ides of March.
All right. Excellent. So Ides of March moves on.
What? I just wanted to say a joke.
No, psych. Gravity moves on. Of course, Gravity. It's a great movie. Check it out. If you just want a movie that's so tense the entire time, then go check out Gravity. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're doing the next 2 rounds of this showdown. We're going to do the next round of our George Clooney showdown. These have each won already. Now they're squaring off against each other. In 1996, we were given Seth Gecko in the Salma Hayek movie From Dusk Till Dawn. 1998 gave us Jack Foley in Out of Sight. Mike, where are you going?
Well, normally I'm a Foley artist.
Ew.
I'm going with Seth Gecko on this one.
Ryan, what do you say?
Yeah, Mike is a absolute moron. It's Out of Sight.
Mike is stupid, but Ryan and I are a voting block. So we'll see you in the next round, Mike.
I used to be smart. Now I'm just dumb.
Now I'm just dumb. Oh, man. I remember being young when I heard that line in Magnolia, and I was like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be dumb when I'm older. And I was right.
Wait, so who moves on?
Who moves on is Jack Foley from Out of Sight.
Okay.
And it's going to be the same thing next round, right? Mike's going to try to
Interesting.
block again. In 2000, we were given Everett from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? 2001. Danny Ocean. Mike, vote quick. What do you say?
Ocean.
Ryan?
Okay, it's Danny Ocean for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely Danny Ocean. Now, actually, that's going to be a very interesting matchup next round. I can't wait to see that one. It's only good movies left from here, I think. 2005 gave us Fred Friendly from Good Night and Good Luck versus 2007, Michael Clayton as Michael Clayton. Whew. What do you think, Mike? Fred Friendly, Michael Clayton? What could it be?
Michael Clayton.
Michael Clayton. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that we're just talking about acting here, and I think
Yes.
that Michael Clayton is so George Clooney that we have to leave off all of his like auteurism with Good Night and
Yes.
Good Luck.
Yeah, I think that is a tough thing about this is that like this is really like we're getting like the full Clooney because it's like his idea and he's the author of the whole project. But Michael Clayton for just roles, I do think Michael Clayton is like around the first that people think of when they think of this guy.
I'm so sorry, Greg. We're in the second round, and you have not said the word Tomorrowland yet. So, is this bunk?
Secret surprise
When are we gonna finally get to Tomorrowland?
from
Oh, I
movie
know
of the year
when.
favorite Brad Bird.
Brad Bird, yeah, dude. A rare misstep from Brad Bird. 2009 gave us Ryan Bingham from Up in the Air. 2013 gave us Matt Kowalski from not just Up in the Air, but Up in Outer Space itself in the movie Gravity,
I love when art speaks to each other like this.
right? A lot of intertextuality going on here. What do you think, Mike?
Ryan Bingham.
Ryan?
Yeah, despite everything I said about astronauts, I do think that Ryan Bingham is just so him, and like the sort of character that he tried to get typecast as so that he could fight out of it in the third act. You know,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
like prove that like you can be handsome in a suit and have feelings. And so I think Up in the Air is so him.
I feel like Gravity, they're almost casting George Clooney, the like cultural figure, you know, and it
yeah.
works for the movie. It totally works because it subverts some of our expectations, but it's not quite the same thing as his role
Also-
in Up in the Air.
You said he comes back at the end. I'm not sure he came in the beginning. Like Sandra Bullock is going insane, and
Maybe
imagine
she just
George
always
Clooney. Yeah, if his astronaut name was astronaut George Clooney, that might have made more sense.
Hi, I'm astronaut George Clooney, and I'm here to tell you about space. It wants to kill you constantly, and it smells like burning metal. 1998, Jack Foley from Out of Sight versus 2001, Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11. I thought this was going to be a slam dunk, and then now I look at this matchup. Ryan, is this one of those things where like the Western Conference Championship is actually the championship itself, and the finals are just determined by that?
Yeah, you know it is, Greg, and it's because the East sucks.
The East is so
And-
bad.
But there is nothing about who you want him to be in a movie that isn't Danny Ocean.
Yeah.
And I think Out of Sight is in my top 5 movies of all time that came out in the year it did and the genre that it did. But
Oh, sure.
how do you vote against Danny Ocean?
How do you vote against Danny Ocean? That sounds like a beautiful song. Mike, is that the song you're singing?
I'm singing it. How do you solve a problem like Danny?
Yeah, it's tough. Danny Ocean is an amazing role in an amazing movie. All right, then the penultimate matchup here, 2007, Michael Clayton versus 2009, Ryan Bingham from Up in the Air. We've got the Office, George Clooney yelling about things going all the way to the top, including I'm going to fire everybody in this company all the way up to the top. Mike, what do you say?
I'm a Bingham boy.
Bingham boy for Mike. Ryan,
I'm a
what do you
Clayton
think?
Cad.
That leaves it up to me, and I have to say between these are two huge movies or whatever, but Michael Clayton just has that inside edge to me. I don't know. I think that is basically one of the first movies I think of when I think of George Clooney, which leads us to our finals here. 2001's Danny Ocean versus 2007 Michael Clayton.
And you know what? As much as I love Jack Foley and Out of Sight, this is the finals. Like this
Yes.
is what we were always getting to. These two, the whole like I'm reveling in my criminality so much that you love me. Like I'm
Yes.
just a criminal hero, and I'm gonna fight back against my past, my present, my future. Just George up the yeehaw. I still think that it's obvious though. I think that Michael Clayton is so as a movie so it has all of its charms, but it doesn't have the charm. You know what I mean?
Do you agree, Mike?
I agree, Greg.
Yeah, I think that, this is the two major sides of George Clooney, right? Do you want him screaming into the phone or do you want him yucking it up? And I think ultimately you want him yucking it up, right? So that's why Danny Ocean is the winner of the George Clooney career retrospective. That is his most identifiable character. And when it's all said and done, feels like a good answer, right, gentlemen?
Yeah, there weren't 3 Michael Claytons.
But can you imagine a multiplicity style movie?
He's back again, and the weed killer has never been more deadly. When we come back, we'll keep talking about this movie. Three Kings is Russell's first attempt at the big leagues after becoming an indie darling, but he took the stylized filmmaking with him. The jump cuts, editing style, and bleach bypassing in some ways make his first studio film even more experimental than anything that came before. Does Russell's style here hold up, or does it feel dated and heavy-handed? What do you think, Brian?
I like the visuals of the movie a lot. I like the bleached out look. I'm kind of surprised that more filmmakers haven't done that, though I guess it's probably for the best they don't. I think maybe 25th Hour used something very similar to that, but it really, again, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I remember like in the theater projected on film. I don't think the DVD or the streaming kind of captures how kind of shocking that kind of visual style looked in a theater. And I think it was also a really good sign to the audience, like this is not what you signed up for exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, look, there's a manic energy to this movie in the editing and the filmmaking. There's a manic energy certainly to David O. Russell. But I look, one of my favorite kind of mini genres is when these indie directors get their first big studio assignment, and a lot of times they won't acknowledge this, but they at the time or maybe even later, but David O. Russell must have figured, like, for all of David O. Russell's confidence, which he definitely has a lot of, even he must have been like, I might not get another shot at this. Like,
Yes.
To go from a $7 million movie to a $50 million budgeted movie with Marky Mark, one of the guys from NWA, and the doctor from ER, who's slowly becoming a movie star. That's.
We also got Nora Dunn.
We also got Nora Dunn and Jamie Kennedy, who I think Nora Dunn and Jamie Kennedy are great in this movie. I honestly, rewatching this and rewatching Scream lately, I think Jamie Kennedy was like, there's a version of Jamie Kennedy's '90s career where he goes off and just does really interesting indies and kind of maybe gets in a different lane than he wound up. But I love the energy in the movie. I love the filmmaking in this movie. It does not look dated to me because I don't think very few people have tried to capture this or copy it.
Does Jamie Kennedy have the thesis statement of the movie where he is going to use a very expensive piece of equipment to not be able to see the people in front of him?
Oh, yeah. That's very true.
Those don't work during the day.
Yeah.
They kind of work.
That's kind of Jamie Kennedy's roles in all these big 90s movies, is to explain the rules of what's going on one way or the other. Yeah.
Just so our home audience knows, if you've never heard of it before, what is, Ryan, bleach bypassing, and what is the effect on the screen?
It's an incredibly complicated film process that I didn't understand even when it was being explained to me for the book. But the end result is that, like, there's like very high contrast colors, and sometimes it almost looks like there's particles kind of in the air. Like, it does give it kind of this dusty feel at times, and I think
silvery,
it's
right?
Silvery, yeah. But it's also like the first time you see it, you can't quite understand what is this intentional? Like, you're like, wait, the first couple of scenes, like, oh, did they mess something up in the lab? Is the projector off? And it kind of gives, like, it's weird. It's like it gives this look that's very specific but yet not detailed, if that makes sense.
You know what I've heard it described as, and this might have been from your book actually. I heard it described as like you're looking at a black and white image while you're looking at a color.
Oh, that's
image.
interesting. Maybe it is in the book.
And it causes it to be really washed out. But honestly, go back and look at images that are processed this way, bleach bypassing, and allow your brain to see it as both black and white and color, and you really you begin to understand exactly that is what you're looking at.
And this was shot on film, which means if they screwed this up and they got the dailies back, they were screwed. I mean,
That's
they There's no.
I read that he had a really hard time getting the film developed, actually, and for a while they weren't totally sure that they were going to be able to actually.
No, it's a
develop
lot of technical issues with that filmmaking style. Yeah.
Ryan, what other elements what might we think of when we're talking about experimental film?
Well,
here?
just to go back to the bleach bypass real quick, he said in a bunch of interviews that this was because this is what the photos and newspapers looked like.
Yeah.
And that sort of makes you think he wants to do something realistic. But this, like, we talked about the Blair Witch Project a couple weeks ago. It's not the Blair Witch Project. He's not trying to make you feel like you are there at all.
Right.
So this is more experimental, like, I'm going to sort of pour or put some dashes of avant-garde into a Warner Brothers movie just to see what I can, not just to, but to see what I can get away with. I think that the editing style and, we talked about the bullet in the body, just making these decisions and never letting us get comfortable with any scene, particularly in the first half, so that maybe we watch more scenes in the second half that are closer to what we're comfortable with. I think what it reminded me of was earlier Oliver Stone. And I think about how bad this movie would have been if 1999 Oliver Stone had directed it, because if you take something that is roughly this time, 3 years earlier, of Natural Born Killers, and how there's so many decisions being made in every second of it. And so I think that to have a younger guy come in and just make the ones that he thinks are important instead of really trying to like impress / dazzle / turn like people off, I think was so helpful. Like I was never overloaded on this. And if I was, I thought about how much this has been copied since then, as opposed to mistakes that Russell was making.
Yeah, I think actually, it's funny. I was going to say, sorry, but Oliver Stone with Robert Richardson making an action movie is kind of, you're right. That's very much what this movie kind of looks like.
Jumping on what you said, Ryan, where it starts off like more frenetic editing and then slows down, does I like capture if we are saying they all do mature, it is that the frenetic editing is all they want to do is fight. They want to kill so bad, and they want to run around and fight, and just adrenaline, testosterone, and then they're seeing the fruits of those actions, and they're mellowing out and getting to know that there's people, and then they're like in it, and they're like, okay, what if we breathe for a second?
Yeah.
Have a conversation with somebody who lives here and find out what we should do next.
Some of this slowdown sort of affected me, though, because I was like, oh, shit, do I have to reset my internet? Like, is this a Zoom call and this person is not coming in?
For sure.
Okay, yes. Yeah, there are moments where a modern audience member might be like, is this grainy because I have a bad copy of it? Is it choppy? And I think that's what you were talking about, Brian, when you're like, are they projecting this correctly? And okay, so that is like one element of the director's job. The other is that he is sort of like the captain of the movie. And this movie has like a noted terrible on-set environment. Does that carry into the film? Are there moments where we feel like the choppiness of how this movie was put together, do you think?
I mean, that's interesting. Because the famous story is that Russell and Clooney did not get along, and they had various fights, including one day where they both kind of blew up. And
literally,
they get the fisticuffs,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things too where when you look at the coverage of it back then, I mean, they did talk about it. There was no way to cover it up, which means that, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Entertainment Weekly, some people there had heard reports about this because it was filmed in like Arizona. It was not filmed. He was going to ER from the ER set to Arizona, so those stories were trickling back that there was problems on the set. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if you can see it in the movie. I mean, I wonder if there's like a shortness to Clooney's character at a certain point, or whether he was directed that way. But I think what's interesting is that Clooney knew this was going to be Clooney had to make a good movie. Like he kind of knew. If you read interviews, he's like, I know Batman was not good. I've got enough money now. I mean, I think he gave a quote to Entertainment Weekly. He's like, we all die. Don't you at least want to say you made a couple of good movies? So, I think the tension of this movie was probably very good for his performance, because I think like he couldn't have quit. It would have gotten bad if he quit, but he could have phoned it in at a certain point and been like, fuck this guy. I don't care. I'm just going to deliver. I'm going to walk in for my shots, not do anything else, and walk out. And he, to his credit, he stuck through the whole movie, and they managed to keep shooting even after these fights. And I think it's one of the better, I like Clooney. He's an actor who certainly grows on screen in the 90s. but I think I do like him a lot in this movie, and I think it's the beginning of like you almost see him age 10 years, where it's like, oh, Clooney is already kind of like the Hollywood kind of mature guy. He's kind of like the kind of paternal figure that he is literally in the movie, but also he has a little bit of that gravitas in this movie that he didn't always have in like One Fine Day or some of those other 90s movies, I guess.
Mike, George Clooney was very famously, he had been in movies at this time, but when like basically petitioning for the role, he referred to himself as just a TV actor. Do you feel like that moniker is accurate? Does this movie portray him as just a TV
No,
actor?
I think if this was another stinkeroo, if like Brian said he phoned it in, I don't think we would get the 2000s patron saint of Hollywood that Clooney became. Like I think he oozes charisma, and he's a dirtbag. My favorite Clooney is dirtbag Clooney versus like sanctimonious Clooney, and
he doesn't do it enough.
Neck tattoo
He doesn't do
Clooney?
it enough. He does not play
No.
shitty and kind of skeevy enough.
And he's so good at it, especially because you want to love him. He's one of the most handsome men who's ever existed in history.
This movie,
he's so
particularly,
charming.
dude. Like, damn.
Yes. And he's so charming, but he's so like when he's out, he does arc, but the whole like he's slimeball for 3/4 of the movie, and there's something compelling about watching that, and he sells more than anybody else that arc. At no point does he look in the camera and say, "And here's when I learned about humanity." Like, there's no speech, and he just does it gradually with his weathered eyes. Fuck you, man. That's great.
We'll get you looking like him. No problem. I think too the juxtaposition in the editing in the very beginning of them all partying, and maybe George Clooney or Major Archie was doing that 20 years ago, but not now, right? Instead, he's somewhere else having sex with girls and bitching about how the war is going or his job or his life, right? He's just older in that way. I was expecting to sort of see young Clooney, but it turns out young Clooney was on like Roseanne. Like it's not here.
Yeah.
And so what we get is this guy who has just known it all or seen it all. And I think too, the tension is that I think that Russell and Clooney, they agree on so many things globally, right? I think their opinions line up so much as far as how the world should work. I just think David O. Russell doesn't work on the set the same way. But I think that they gelled so much because in so many ways, I think that this is such an auteur movie in that the tone shifts wildly, but never away from what Russell wants to say. You know, his confidence is always there. So this is funny. This is gross, but he's always there. And I think Clooney is along with that ride until he sees David O. Russell scream at a extra or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe possibly like throw him to the ground. It really does sound like he was kind of out of control. Like he didn't like the way the extra was like, he was supposed to be like manhandling Ice Cube, and then he wouldn't do it the right way. So David O. Russell like ran over and grabbed him and kind of threw
I have
him
a
to the
quote
ground.
here.
That seems like a little
I have
bit
a quote
too
here
much.
from when Clooney was choking David O. Russell out, and he said, and I quote, "This is not a prank. This is not a set prank. I'm doing this for reals."
You honestly, with that whole group, you have to expect prank at any moment, even if it's something serious like the cops showing up to arrest you. When we come back, we are going to continue talking about Three Kings. We get a lot of cultural perspectives here, with George Clooney even using the diverse cast to prove to one Iraqi that the amount of cultures involved should allow him to be given cars. But are all these races, creeds, and colors represented thoughtfully and equally, Mike?
No.
Next question.
Are you saying that because you think that that's what I want you to say?
No,
Mike?
that's the whole time. Like, it's so much of it. You could be like, well, that's what the movie's trying to say. There's a reason. So when the Americans can't speak Arabic, sure, that is historically accurate. We go in ignorant and just yell at people louder in English, and then get upset when they don't listen.
That's what we can do, though.
We go in
When our
ignorant and we
directions are
stay ignorant.
Stay ignorant hard. But I do think, and this is, I can't tell if I'm like being too woke for broke, but like, I like Cliff Curtis as an actor, man. I do. But he's Maori playing somebody from Iraq. And so I don't know if we could just be like.
And who's playing his Iraqi daughter?
Maybe. Yeah.
Leah Shawkat is playing his Iraqi daughter. Very good. And who is playing who is playing the character Saeed? He has in his contract he'll only
Saeed,
go by this name.
our friend from
Saeed
Lahane.
is our friend from Lahane, and he of course is French Moroccan. So is there any there were a lot of actual, real Iraqi refugees used to make this movie, though, right?
Yeah.
There were some, yeah. I mean, Catherine Hardwicke employed a lot, I think, for some of the production design. And I think they shot in America. I think they shot in California and Arizona and maybe one other state that I'm forgetting.
I heard that they shot in Arizona, and I was surprised because there are some shots that seem definitely like they were shot in California. There's like I feel like you could see the foothills in the background, and I have to say, maybe I'm being silly here, but I felt like it was so obvious that this movie was shot in an American desert and not in a Middle Eastern desert. Is that a thing? Could I really be perceiving
The
that?
sand looks different.
The sand looks different, right? It very much looked like the American desert. Ryan, are you at all concerned with sort of like using people that maybe have a complexion that we think might fit for a role, even if their ancestry doesn't quite work out?
I'm glad that we do it less now. But and like we can shit on this movie the same way that we can shit on The Searchers or any Hollywood Western where they were like, oh, he looks tan today, so get him in a headdress as soon as possible. Like this has been going on for a long time. I'm mostly
Italian guy, you're Mexican. Mexican guys, you're Indians.
Both of you are Italian right now, though, so just do it. I'm mostly focused on the movie's like sort of tone towards everybody, and I think the movie does a good job at portraying the Americans as the worst, that I'm sort of in the zone of the movie and not thinking about that too much. You asked me though, specifically, like you said my name and then a question, and so it's not great. It's not my favorite, but I think the movie does such a good job of like the American army in this movie, or military, is so fucking bad at their job that sort of overtakes it to me.
Yeah. It's interesting, one of the strengths of the American military is supposed to be that it is like an all-volunteer force. But very much in this movie, it seems like then our army is just a baggage handler and like just a guy that wants to be selling carpets. And like they don't seem like soldiers. They seem like whatever other
I didn't
job
remember that
have
they were
back in
reservists.
America.
Like that's different to me than people who enlist, right? Like those people are there and they just wanted some extra money to like do some stuff on, what is it, 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year?
Yeah, 1 week a month, 2 weeks. Yeah, with reservists and guard wouldn't hit like that professional level until like 05, 06, when they're like, oh no, we go up as much or sometimes more than active army do. And so yeah, the true professional soldier is like Clooney then. But he's still, as we said, a dirtbag. And I do if we're just at the movie, just the text, I do think Saeed he's one of our torturers, but they do a great job. And he's a phenomenal actor. He's also superhuman. Like what?
Superhuman.
Yeah. He's strength of 10 men.
Amazing speed.
I found myself so sympathetic and empathizing with him. And I was shocked by that. In the 90s, being able to empathize with somebody from an American movie who's in Iraq, who's torturing an American soldier, that's crazy.
Can I just say, torturing, bad. But asking someone very pointed questions and then being like, cool guy. Yeah. The way he like uses like cool guy, awesome man, the way he like puts that in there, I feel like is such like a kind of like subtle jab at America. Like you think you guys are cool. It's just a game. Well, like here's my story of my fucking family being blown up. And I'm just like you, Marky Mark. The bosses go to war. And when the bosses go to war, they send you and me. And you bomb, like your bosses bomb my house and my bosses bomb your house, but we're the fucking same and the bosses are the fucking same. Like this is their deal, not our deal at all. But we are always the ones thrown into the meat grinder. And it's like there's more that unites Marky Mark and Saeed than really divides them. They have the same exact life, just separated by 10,000 miles or whatever. How about the way that this movie handles, there's two Southern characters. And, we don't spend a lot of time talking about this on the show, but like, what is the portrayal of the South? What do we gain by having Jamie Kennedy and Spike Jonze, both who like do not naturally speak in a Southern accent, but like taking on the guise of Southerners?
It's funny. I never really connected that these are very broad I mean, they're very broad performances. They're very broad exaggerations. I mean,
They are from
I don't
here.
know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I love Spike Jonze in this movie so much that I probably just looked past that in 1999 and probably looked past it the last couple of times I watched it. Just because I feel like he's always playing a character that's exaggerated, like whether he's like accepting an MTV award or giving a fake interview. Like, I think you can only cast him to play some. I mean, like for all we know, like his character might not even be from the South. It might just be an affect the guy put on. It's like
Dude.
which
Oh
would
my
be a
God.
brilliant being John Malkovich kind of twist on things. But yeah, I mean, look, to make him the Southern Rube, it's not entirely fair. Do I think that character in some ways is one of the most like more thoughtful characters of these guys? Is maybe not redeems, but maybe adds a dimension to that. I don't know. But I mean, I find his whole arc in this film and his performance very endearing. And just like I think the funniest, most of the best scenes of the movie are the ones where he's around.
Yeah, I'm only going to say stuff that proves that I did not go to high school. But please stop telling people I did not go to high
Yeah.
school. What I wish, if I could wish cast direct this movie, the Coen brothers did it, then Spike Jonze would have played Archie Gates, and George Clooney would have been Oh Brother as Spike Jonze's character, and that would have been a different movie.
Oh, you know what that means? We are going to a speed round. What, if anything, is this movie saying about sexism?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty. When you only have like one or two speaking female characters, it's kind of hard to say it's doing a lot. I mean, I think Nora Dunn's character is getting the shaft from everyone for a lot of reasons, and the fact that she's a female reporter is probably just one of them. But it's telling that is a female character.
I would say the other reporter
But if
gets
I'm
the shaft.
not wrong, Judy Greer's
Yeah,
getting
there
the
it is,
shaft
Greg.
from just one.
Right.
You're hosting the shit out of this.
There's a lot of like tension between the two female characters, and there's this insinuation that Judy Greer's character is having sex with with Archie Gates, like for something. But I don't think the text bears that out at all. I think she's just having sex
Archie
with him.
Gates
and just
looks like George Clooney.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. If you're Judy Greer and George Clooney and you are having sex, the reason you're having sex is because you are Judy Greer and George Clooney, and your bodies are telling you you have to do this.
But
no
I do
matter
think
what.
Nora has that like monologue at Jamie Kennedy,
Yeah.
where she goes like she is aging, and so there's a younger reporter that like she would be. History and society have told her she'd be foolish. That wasn't in her mind that she's going to be replaced by a younger
you're right.
model.
Yeah.
Also,
Honestly, though, dude, I'm older now, and I think Nora Dunn looks great in this
her
movie.
push away of Jamie Kennedy, like she has done that 1 billion times. Like
Yes.
the veteran tennis player
Yes.
blindfolding themselves and hitting the ball perfectly.
Has any movie captured the importance of whiteboards better?
No,
Maybe Oppenheimer. I don't know.
Not until my biopic comes out.
Whiteboards
Greg.
are so
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We in our studio, we just have every wall covered in whiteboards. We are each making notes on
That's how we
whiteboards.
text.
Whiteboards are very important to us. Hey, what is the problem with Michael Jackson?
Saeed asks it so many times, never got an answer. What's the problem with Michael Jackson?
I heard that David O. Russell had to sign literally. Brian, you were talking about how like a verse Warner Brothers is that I heard he literally had to sign something saying that he would take out lines that alluding to that the problem was that Michael Jackson is a pedophile.
That's interesting. I mean, the fact that question is never resolved. I mean, it's also hilarious because the movie is set in the early '90s, and by the time this came out, there was even more crazy shit.
But
so it's a very
Yes.
multi-layered line in this movie.
I think the pedophile thing totally changes the point, though, because it's somebody who like felt the pressure to just change their look and or their culture to become white.
Yeah.
So, like, are you Iraqis going to do that too? Like, that's what America does: is it mows through and says, "Be like us or die."
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was famously post-processed using the bleach technique to bring out the whiter colors.
That's a joke for the four of us.
If you are not going to shoot someone, should you also not discharge the weapon right by their head 5 times in a row? That is such a movie thing, and this is one thing that like I get Grumpy Greg about for sure, is movies always have really bad gun habits in them. And if you're not going to shoot the guy, Don't fire the weapon into a stone
Right.
wall right next to his
You
head.
can see in his face when it's happening. Just shoot me. Just shoot me. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is so loud.
Well, that is it for Speed Round. When we come back, we're going to give this movie some awards and give each of you some recommendations. Awards. If my memory serves, this movie got completely skunked in terms of nominations, despite the fact that it seemed to be a rather big movie at the time and obviously had an enduring impact. But we're going to give it...
I don't know if that's shocking to you guys now. Probably not. But like the day before it came out, like if you guys saw this preview the week before it came out, would you think, oh, that's got some nominees locked up?
Nope.
No, it looks too fun, even though it's
yeah.
not. But we've learned through the years the Academy is actually dumb and doesn't watch a lot of the movies. So they're like, what, that fun LARF? No.
Not to touch shit, but I could have seen a best editing, because as we always talk about, the award is most editing. This movie got a lot of editing.
Yeah. They edited the hell out of this one. Well, let's see what awards it wins now before we all get to our recommendations. I'm going to start off with Musical Moment Mike. Alliteration being so fun. Musical Moment Mike, what do you think is the musical moment from this movie, my friend?
It's not my favorite, but I think it stands out the most. It is, I think, when they finally see the gold. It's not just backpack suitcases full of, and then like a hard rockin' version of like what I would type in a generic Middle Eastern music kicks in. And there's 2 awards this moment was vying for in me. And but I'm gonna put it in this one.
All right, very good. So the sort of like kick in of what sounds to American.
It was very
ears.
much. I'm just, and this is me mimicking the movie. It's very like na 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 na, and then guitars and drums start kicking in.
There's a place in Arizona
where the iced tea is really cheap. 99 cents, and they're still doing it. Ryan, what do you think is the musical moment?
19.99 cents. Honorable mention real quick. I do love
HM.
And I know how hacky this is, but Mark Wahlberg, after pulling a cow off his car, just being like, round, round, get around, I get around. Needle drop, needle drop, needle drop. But Greg, I'm going to go with one of my favorite singers, Spike Jonze, saying, we 3 kings be stealing and go.
Oh, wow. What a good answer. I thought the right answer was the Beach Boys song, Ryan. I thought that very strongly.
Yeah.
Until you reminded me that there is a song that is even more enduring than the movie, really.
At least for you two.
Yeah, at least in our friend group. This movie is a comedy. So are there any moments that made you laugh, Ryan? What's the funniest moment from this movie?
I think there's a lot. And I just think I'm going to go here with the most iconic, even though it's horrifying, but what a perfect setup for the movie, which is just the whole are we shooting?
Yeah.
For the first like 30 seconds of it before it becomes violent, it is maybe not Abbott Costello, but at least Abbott and Abbott of, no, that's what I'm asking. Are we shooting?
Yeah, dude, no, seriously.
And just like, we don't know what we're fucking doing here. And it's Mark Wahlberg of all people, you know?
Yeah.
Who never knows.
And there is a certain also tension of like, it is funny up until he shoots that guy. And then anytime anybody brings it up, Marky Mark is like, could we not talk about it? Like, it's deeply upsetting to me. Like, could we not talk about it? And the story becomes at some point that he literally shot the guy's head off.
Right.
And it's like, you see how the stories are used to like remove them from the terrible context of war. But when you see it firsthand and you're the one who does it, you can't let the like false narrative stand anymore.
I mean, I think the fact that he has a daughter at home is used a lot for his motivation, but like his trauma that carries him through is that he killed a guy on the first day of the war being over.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, what do you say? What's the funniest moment?
Another one that is, I'd say, horrifying is he has just been tortured, he being Marky Mark, and he's out, he's in a business suit, he's kind of running to his people, he's clearly unhinged, and he sees Cliff Curtis, and he has his gun, and they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's on his side, and like, it takes a beat too long, and then he just like hugs him, and he's like, hey man, what? Thanks for coming to get me. We're all good. And just that quick of scary Marky Mark, it was like almost a laugh of release and relief, But
Yeah.
it got me, and I do think the intention was, isn't that funny how like overly nice he is right now? Like, oh, that's great. Let's all get those cars then.
And by the way, I live closer to LA than you two do. So if you've ever been to a Marky Mark party, that's what it is. He is in a dirty suit coat. He does not understand why you showed up to the party, and then 5 minutes later, he's super cool with it.
I'm going to give that one to Ryan with the guy getting the "Are we shooting people?" It's really just that first one.
Can I do an HM?
I was also going to do an HM, but let's go with you, Mike.
Is George Clooney? He's now trying to convince other Iraqi soldiers that they actually should all be on like the same side and like, God bless America, God bless a free Iraq, and they're like doing it, and they're like, yeah, cheering, and the guy's like, but we can't help you at all. Like,
my HM is going to go for Marky Mark. Calls his wife when he's like captured, and they're talking, and she's like, I thought the war was over, and he's like, it's really complicated, honey.
Yeah, that's the scene that proves how important whiteboards are.
Okay, but this isn't all just rocking to the tunes and laughing our asses off. There's also a lot of stuff that's making us cringe in this movie, I'm imagining. Mike, what's making you cringe from this movie?
A fair amount, but I decided to go on with like an uber personal one that I know like wouldn't make other people cringe. The use of first names just isn't a thing in military culture.
Yes,
so every time they're like, where's Troy? I'm like, who the fuck is Troy?
Yes, there's no way.
And then like calling each other like Colonel? No, it's Sir. If you're going up, it's Sir. Down, you can use ranks, but like just the misusing of names and rank structures, like just get a consultant, maybe.
Yeah, dude. Like the guy that George Clooney becomes at the end of this movie, they should have hired that guy.
So also, Ice Cube's final thing where they're going over what the characters do at the end.
Yeah.
Ice Cube's real quick is like, oh, he worked with George Clooney.
But they did it before they revealed what George Clooney was. It was like, wait, what? But also, Ice Cube's character's name is super confusing because it's Chief, and there is the warrant officer structure where it's not listed. It's not officer. It's warrant officer. It's a separate thing. And the top is Chief Warrant Officer. So they do get called Chief. And so, but I kept saying, I was like, but he is not. He is a sergeant first class, but they named him Chief. What the fuck?
They could not have known this one. Or Ryan, what was your cringe? Did we do yours yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah. What is your cringe, Ryan?
My cringe is actually a quote from George Clooney off the set after the movie was done, where he claimed to have pranked everyone except for Ice Cube. And he said, he was born in East LA. He's been pranked enough. I don't know what that means.
George.
Wow. This one is not one that the movie can be faulted for, but I just think it is awkward in the way history is rolled out. Watching Marky Mark in cuffs scream, I can't breathe, is not what I'm looking for in a modern movie. But I'm going to go with Ryan's because that was a legit cringe. Although I do feel yours, Mike. That's no civilian knows anything about the military, and so movies are just free to just sort of like make up any old thing they want.
Do you guys know who George Clooney showed off on how to choke at the end of the movie when he was the consultant?
No.
That was David O. Russell, that he was just choking
choking
on screen.
him. How fun.
Yeah.
Remember when we did this earlier, Dave? We talked about the very strong hand of director David O. Russell in this. But what is, if we said a signature moment or a signature device used in this, what would you say it is, Ryan?
It's really complicated, so I tried to pick something that had everything I wanted to say so that I could talk longer. Like,
yes,
always when you're up at karaoke, you choose the 9-minute song because people want to hear you sing.
Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I will be both parts.
Oh, no. I know it's a duet. Not this time, folks. It's me and me. I chose the milk truck scene because I think that it takes his sort of want to. So basically, what happens is that it was built up a little bit before that they just need milk for the people and for the babies. And this truck comes in. Everybody thinks it's not only going to run over everybody, but like it's full of gasoline or something flammable. Yeah. They shoot it, and a flood of milk comes out, and this cross of like nobody knows what they're doing and slapstick of everyone falling over with like a ton of milk coming out at them. And then right when you're about to think like that's fucking crazy, we see these people run to get as much not dirty milk as they can. And I think that like this is the tone that he's always trying to go for, is like, I think I can do three things at once. I'm not always successful, and I'm never successful in later movies, but this scene I think sort of had it all.
That's a great one. Mike, what do you think?
Mine is when Wahlberg is getting tortured and Saeed says, no, you killed my son. Imagine your daughter. And so we flash, and we've already met the wife, we've met the daughter, and we flash to that. And it is that it's like the most quiet the movie's ever been. And it just flashes to that very quick. So you see the horror of it, and then back to just Wahlberg's face.
Yeah.
And I went, damn, have I been too cruel to David O. Russell? But then I thought of all of his later movies and went, nah.
I'm going to give that one to Ryan. Milk truck, big scene. Nobody said the like interior shots. We talked about that as like his directing, one of the things he did. But that's when I think of this movie, probably the first shot I think of maybe is the bullet going into the
It's
anatomy.
so Three Kings, but I don't know if it's so Russell.
Okay, yeah.
And I just love, I don't know, it's done in such
It's
a
almost
weird
Fincher.
way.
It's like David Fincher more
Yes,
than
it
anything.
made me think of Fight Club, and he goes through exactly.
And Scorsese would do this all the time, where he would like be inside of a light bulb and show it pop. Like it's a real Scorsese thing, but like the way that it is done is disgusting, but also like late 80s Nickelodeon. Like it's like Double Dare-esque, and it's sort of cartoonishness
So
as
bright
well.
green, that bile.
Yeah. And like almost like you can put your hand in there and find the flag that you need to win the game.
I love it. Okay, and then now... Oh, yeah, I give that one to Ryan for the milk. Now, our most coveted of the awards, the illustrious pound for pound performance. Mike, big or small, who is giving you the best performance in this movie?
I'd say this one's a medium, and probably also his shirt size. And we fell in love with him in Lahane, and then I think he came back to do it all again. It's Saeed Taghmaoui, and he fucking crushes.
Yeah, dude, the intensity of this guy mixed with cool guy.
Yes.
And like the way.
Are you okay, my man? It's so
Yeah.
fucking.
Making fun of Americans the entire time.
Yes.
Like, oh, does your Tamagotchi need more donuts? You disgusting piece of shit.
And he's like, why are you guys here? It's like, to liberate Kuwait. And he's like, okay, really? That's really what you guys are doing here? That's so interesting. Yeah. Wow. What an intense scene. And then like, yeah, my wife got crushed by a bunch of concrete from one of your fucking bombs. Or like, that reminds me of what Amir says later. It's like, you guys, I like opened cafes here and you bombed them all.
Yeah.
You just bombed my cafes.
So I went to B school.
Ryan, who do you have for your pound for pound performance?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but same scene, different angle. I'm going with Mark Wahlberg, who I cannot believe every time that like he's got so much emotional heft on his shoulders for the movie and really does do it. This is just after Boogie Nights. I think that there was two like shots at Stardom before this that both bombed. So he was almost like in that, oh fuck, I got to capitalize on this real quick, just like George Clooney was at that time. And it's not our deepest performance that I've ever given this award to, but like when it mattered, he was there. And like, out of text, he did say, I do want to be shocked. I do want to feel what that's like on the set, and did take a shock. That's not why I'm saying this, but like, I can't believe what he made me go through while watching it. And so I have to give it to him.
If we did a career retrospective of Marky Mark, and I can't imagine why we wouldn't, I really do think that this would be top of the mountain. This is a great performance by Marky Mark. Like, I have no caveats about that at all. But honestly, I left these two particular viewings of this movie that I did this week just shook by Saeed's performance. So I think I'm going to go with that.
I get one.
And we should say that Brian did have to leave. Brian Raftery, our guest, but his was obviously Jamie Kennedy. So
yeah,
we'll
he
throw
loved
that in
Jamie
there.
Kennedy. And what we cut out is he went on a 30-minute monologue about Malibu's Most Wanted is one of the most underrated movies. That was crazy.
Yeah,
But
he put a lot of his own career on the line to talk about that.
You guys notice that every time he would like hit a button, and then we would like fly out of our chair, and he would just go X right at the screen.
You got X'd. We are not just giving awards here. We also want to give you, the listening public, some recommendations So Ryan, let's start with you. What do you recommend if you loved the feeling of this movie?
Well, a lot of things that we talked about tonight made me make this pick, which was war movie, anti-war. War is cool. Let's bring our experimental shit into the movie. I had brought up Oliver Stone earlier and how I think he would have done a terrible job based on his oeuvre around this time. But one movie that I think is much later than this movie, but I think is conversing about how war is awful and yet it does these things to men is The Five Bloods by Spike Lee.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
Well, I think it was on Netflix and it was talked about a little bit, but I'm still going to call it a sleeper here. I still think that it's like sort of
it came out during the lockdown, didn't it?
I think so, yeah. And I don't think enough people saw it, or they were like, oh, this is just, I've seen a Spike Lee movie before, but, he has this way of doing all of this incredible and sometimes very stupid stuff. And I think David O. Russell is capable of that as well. And then turning it into this one picture, this one big pick that was actually pretty remarkable, I think.
Also about a heist.
And so it's such a deep text to talk about, like I think Three Kings is.
Mike, what is your recommendation?
The Five Bloods is why I thought to myself and went, I need a different recommendation in case Ryan is picked first.
No way.
And so I went out of film, out of cinema, I like to read, push his glasses up occasionally.
Boom! Someone's getting points.
And a very cool, is it nonfiction, is it fiction? I'm going to fuck with all of you because I write both, is Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, which is a collection of short stories about Vietnam. And they're like all quote unquote based on real people. What he does just narratively is awesome. There's a first short story and you meet the character, and the next short story is the character of Tim O'Brien talking to the character we just met and asking, is it okay if he tells his story? And like, it's, but it digs into what it does for brotherhood and also like the lies we tell ourselves about war. And yeah, it is a great book.
And real quick, Mike, not that it matters. It doesn't matter. We're fine here. But is it Tim O apostrophe Brian or Tim O dot Brian?
This is a real ass O'Brien.
Yeah.
Okay.
O apostrophe.
All right. It does matter a lot. And I'm glad you said that.
That's a great one, Tim O'Brien. Yeah, the layers of reality, hyper reality, unreality in that, like trying to figure out what really happened and what really didn't. My dad's a Vietnam vet, and he's like, a lot of the stuff that he talks about in that is completely absurd. And I was like, but I think that's kind of the point.
It's very much like the story of the first guy Mark shoots, and we see it evolve instantly.
Yeah,
and I was listening to. I can't remember what I was listening to, but somebody was talking about Apocalypse Now and how most Vietnam vets say nothing in this movie is real. And yet this is what the closest to feeling like what it was like to be in Vietnam that I've ever seen, So it's not just about being the most realistic filmmaker you possibly can. Right. I think this movie is proof of that.
I am going to go with a pretty big project, but it was something I was literally thinking of while I was watching this. It's Band of Brothers, and it is the story of of Normandy, and specifically of the airdrop, sort of like behind the lines in Normandy, and they gave the 101st Airborne this guy, we got this one mission for you, and then it was just like, now do this second mission. Third mission, fourth mission. These guys who were supposed to do like one thing, they kept being pushed. Specifically, what I thought about though was there was an episode where like they have declared victory in Europe, like Germany has surrendered, and one of the higher ups in the American army is like, the war is over now, and it is our goal not to have any more Americans die. So could everybody just act normal and everybody be calm? But the soldiers are like so excited that that their theater of war, they've won, that it's very hard to keep that many kids alive because they're acting kind of nuts and they've just been through this terrible experience. And not everybody makes it through the like the after the peace has been declared, they do lose soldiers still. And I thought, wow, that's kind of just like what's happening here, right? Like the Iraq war is over, but what does that even mean? Like for it to be over, like if we're still shooting at each other, if we're still trying to transport these people or whatever, how does a war actually end?
Is that the show where in the first episode one of the soldiers was like, we were on a break?
We were on a break. I will tell you, do you know when the first and second episode of this show premiered?
No.
September 9th, 2001.
Ugh.
Perfect time to look back at our past.
I'll always forget.
Mm-hmm. Always forget. Well, that is the awards and recommendations. We will come right back after this break. Just a reminder, this season we are talking about 2 movies every show. We already did 99. We already did shows about a bunch of these movies. And so we wanted to just talk about the ones we had not done shows for yet. We don't have the old tapes of the old shows, and so we wanted to still give you our opinions of these movies that we did shows about originally, because one of these movies might be the winning movie. Tonight is Magnolia. We already talked about Magnolia when we did season 1 the first time, but we wanted to make sure we talked about it now because it could win Moody's. It could win Movie of the Year for 1999. It's very much in the running. It's just not going to get its own show. All right. Paul Thomas Anderson was riding so high after Boogie Nights that he was repeatedly told he could probably, at that exact moment, make anything he wanted. You know that caused our boy to go, "Hold my white wine spritzer." Attempting to wring himself out artistically, he put every idea he had into Magnolia, saying after it was done, that might be the best movie he could ever make. Magnolia follows the completely enmeshed lives of a huge cast of characters. Seriously, if you want to see how they're enmeshed, you can go on Wikipedia and see how everybody's connected. It's actually pretty cool.
Not right now, Mike.
Oh,
Don't do it right now, though.
Yeah.
It is a very powerful, but it must be said, long feeling 3 hours of pure cinema. The movie is in many ways a triumph, and we loved it the last time we covered it. But can it be a masterpiece and somehow also be too long? And does focusing on its length obscure any other elements of the movie? Is it a disservice to spend so much time talking about its length?
Yeah, when you talk about like a great novel, you're not going to talk about the picture on the front, like it's binding. That feels like what talking about the length does. It's like, okay, you're like afraid to talk about, like, dig your teeth into this. So you know what I can tell you, 3 hours is long.
There's 3 hours and then there's 3 hours. Does this feel like a particularly long 3 hours, Ryan?
I mean, it doesn't get shorter every time you watch it. You know, like every time you go somewhere for a second or third or fourth time, it feels like it takes less time to get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Magnolia doesn't do that. I think Magnolia was our first podcast that was shorter than the movie we were covering. So I'm glad that we didn't hit 3:20 or whatever it would take to beat this movie. I would say that I'm at the point now with Magnolia, and I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago where I was like, I think this is it, guys. Like, I was fighting against a movie I love, Eyes Wide Shut, to be like, I think it should be Magnolia. And to be a Magnolia defender is in some ways easy because any knock, you can just be like, well, that was the point.
Yeah.
That's actually part of it. Yeah.
Oh, did you not like that part? Yeah. Well, that was the point. There was some stuff that really stuck out this time to me harder than other watches. And what is this for me? Like 15 hours of my life have been spent watching this movie. I still think that it is a masterpiece. I just think that, like, you really have to be ready to throw down if someone challenges you on it.
Right.
Which is the case with Eyes Wide Shut, too, our previous winner. You know, like, I think that there are...
Can I tell you one kind of major figure that has referred to it as unmercifully long?
Paul Thomas Anderson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an older artist, he's decided that it's just too long. And I'll tell you, it's not that there are too many scenes or too many characters. It's that I feel like some scenes just go on for a long time. I'm not going to say too long. They go on for longer than you would expect. Like when people are having freakouts, he stays with freakouts for a really long time.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of the death knell. And but like that's art though. Like that's sort of what we think about like with art house movies is like the camera's going to do what it's going to do, baby. And like you just have to sit there and like if you're suffering, that's all the point. I think this time to me, and again, having seen it this many times, the themes are going to be more and more obvious every time. But it's all of the stuff where it hits you over your head that I had Paul Thomas Anderson in my head and that quote in my head of like, oh, this makes him cringe so much. And for instance, it's current quiz kid, the young guy who pees his pants, Stanley. After the quiz, he's watching the frogs out in the rain. He's like, "This is all happening. This
happened.
It's
this
all
happened.
happened.
These things.
Yeah. And I can see that as like a director who has made 10 movies since then being like, what the fuck was I doing?
Versus
the
good version of that, I would say in Claudia's house, we're like panning over similar part of the movie, like one of the paintings where I think it alludes that she drew it. It says, "And it happened."
Yeah,
on there,
yeah.
and so I'd say that one is still slightly more subtle. Like I think he nailed it there and didn't need Stanley to do it.
Something I noticed watching it this time, though, and I don't know how like I missed it before, or maybe I didn't put it into the equation enough, was the quote, "Life isn't short, it's long." Don't you need the movie to not just be long, but to actually feel long? If your point is that life itself goes on long after the thrill of living is gone.
But most movies have themes that they can show you without making. I think there's a way to convey it. Just like, so thinking about our other movie tonight, Three Kings, made me think of the movie Jarhead, which is also about the first Gulf War. And that was all about how that war is boring, and most of the time when you're at war, it's boring. So they made a boring movie. They made a boring movie, and then went, "That was the point, guys." Which is, I guess it's easy to say that. Sure.
Honestly, I was going to bring this up earlier. Like, I'm going to mark you down for 3 points for that comment. I don't know if I would love Three Kings as much as I do if I hadn't seen Jarhead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was done so much better 9 years or 6 years before you came out. And I get what you're saying about Magnolia too. I think that the problem with Magnolia's length, even though Mike said that we're not allowed to talk about that, is that the pacing works in such a way, and especially the music works in such a way where you feel like you're about to crest into what would be an end of Act 1 and more importantly, end of Act 2. And like, there's like 20 minutes of this movie at like the 2-hour mark where the music is playing throughout. The same music is playing throughout like 20 different scenes with 10 different characters, and it doesn't do that. It's just like you're going to sit here longer with these people. Not a like negation of the movie,
right?
Just stating facts here.
It might have been at that point. My wife. I think she said she's watched this about 10 times. She has a Magnolia tattoo. It's one of her favorite movies. We looked at each other like, the frogs haven't even happened yet. How much fucking longer is this movie?
See, I think it is kind of hard for Paul Thomas Anderson as an older artist to actually effectively comment on his work as a younger artist.
Yes.
I think that's a problem a lot of artists have. And so that's why like what they say about their movies becomes or their art becomes less and less valuable over time. But another thing he's working very hard to do here is to give us an experience that at sometimes feels very movie-like, but then also uses our expectations of the fact that the feelings are very moving-like to sort of trick us into to think we're going to see something.
Right.
Like, so for instance, before the Rain of Frogs, there is just a huge rainstorm. In most movies, when the rain breaks, everyone is ready to come to terms with what's happened and sort of move on. In this movie, that rain is not sufficient to tell everybody what they're supposed to do. Nobody gets the message from that rain. There is, by necessity, a God-ordained second rain, the Rain of Frogs, that really causes people to ultimately make the changes that normally the first rainstorm would kind of do.
Okay, first of all, I want to point out that like frogs rained it down from the sky. When Greg says rain of frogs, he does not mean that frogs took over the country.
I, for one, welcome our new frog overlords.
But I do think that to have it, because like Mike and his wife talking about like the frogs didn't even happen yet. That's like, that means that there's like 8 minutes left. Like, that just isn't that much time in the movie. And so we have to sort of assume that everybody's now going to change their lives and think about the past and go make like amends with everyone now that the frogs have happened afterwards. And we'll see that in Magnolia 2 in IMAX theaters in 3 years. But I don't think that there's the thing is that like there's no boring scene. You're just like, you're sort of overwhelmed by the weight of the movie, but every scene I still think is absolutely incredible. I was picking out performances, and it's hard to say what I thought about this movie 7 years ago when we talked about it, but I want to pick out 2 performances. I thought Melora Walters did an even better job than I had ever remembered. And Mike has a comment on that later. And I think Julianne Moore was an actress that I love. And I think this might be her Clooney Three Kings role. And like, I don't know if she's ever looked better in a movie. Julianne Moore is taking it to a level that nobody else is.
See, yeah, okay, in a good way or a bad way,
Bad.
Ryan?
Not
Yeah,
bad, but lesser than a lot.
Here's what this is. All the faults of this movie, you said this earlier, Ryan. All the faults of this movie invite you to actually see them as strengths, because I do think her performance is terrible in this, except when people really freak out,
Yeah.
they don't do it in an interesting way, and they don't do it with like great comments, and they don't freak out until it's like a good idea to cut and then move on to the next scene. When people are freaking out the way she is for basically this entire movie,
Shut the fuck up.
they're histrionic. They're like,
Shut the fuck up.
suck my dick. But like, besides that one hilarious line, she's not giving us zingers. She's not looking cool. She's not doing like the Brad Pitt thing of making it seem fun to have a breakdown. She and Stanley, the kid who plays Stanley, is also having a little bit of a rough movie. But the same thing might be said of him, which is that, like, yeah, if you're speechifying when you are actually feeling very upset, nothing you say is going to make sense. You're just going to repeat the same basic things over and over and over again. And so it's like, he stayed with those scenes too long, but that seems more real.
And I think that it was all to this point of, I mean, there's so many points. Rich text, this one. But it's all
Very rich text.
It's all to this point of how long is your persona going to go? How long are you going to be TJ Mackey on the stage? Right? And how long until you actually fully break down? And I think that even watching Julianne Moore fucking ring that piece of shit pharmacist through the ringer, which he absolutely should have been.
That guy did suck.
Yeah. Like, how dare you do all this stuff? Like, just comment on all my meds. And he was like, what? I'm just having a conversation. No, like, you're bad at your job. But the camera just holds until we can see sort of like, when does your persona sort of go away? When does it change back into more vulnerable? And how vulnerable is your persona actually showing you? And I do remember talking about this 7 years ago. I think that the segment that we hung on with the longest was the reporter talking to Tom Cruise. And how when you actually sit in a room with people like that, and the people like that have exponentially grown since the last time we've done this podcast.
Crazy how predictive that was.
Right. How much their persona just shatters in front of you. And that's when it's really hard to blame the lingering camera.
Yeah.
You know what that scene reminded me a lot of The Master, when Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master is really finally put to like someone who asks like follow-up questions. Like, I'm sorry, your answer was nonsense. Could you just like actually answer my question? And the way like after two of those questions, he's like, you fucker, pig, you, I hate you so much. Like the way in which like once that falls away, what you're left with is this kind of like this huge ocean of rage.
Right.
That when the control slips even a little bit, all you get is like this absolute freak out.
There's
what do we? Oh,
I wanted to go back because Ryan did call it that. I made a face when he said Melora Walters' name is
the world's most zooted girl.
She, man, does she Zoot Suit Riot?
I read that book to my child last night, and she did not like that book.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick and come back twice as sweaty and twice as frantic.
And he's a cop who thinks
he's
he's good at his job and does not.
Seriously, dude, and my nose looking like a fucking winter wonderland.
She pulls one line over, does it, zoots it, and then frogs land behind her, and she's like, "What was that? Whatever." Next line.
Dude, the way she like flops back on the couch to see the frogs the second time.
That's how my
awesome.
dog looks up at me. It's crazy.
Your dog's high on coke, Mike.
Probably.
You got to handle that shit.
Well, her role is every time I watch this movie, I feel like my opinion flips. And there are viewings of this where I'm like, I think she actually gets it more than anybody else does. And then there's other times where I'm like, I don't know. And this viewing was a blend throughout. It was like scene to scene, but then like it hit harder. Like, or you've seen it enough times so you know what's happening. Like knowing what her dad definitely did do to her, no matter what his like, I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't remember. And I'm like, oh, and this goes back to like the movie version versus the realistic version is that breaks somebody to the point that it is hard to watch them be in the world at all. And so it is sometimes it feels like she's a little too melodramatic, but it's like she's actually pushing through the melodrama.
Damaged people are too much. That's a very hard thing to realize as a human, but damaged people are way too much for the average person to handle.
And she's, I mean, rocked on cocaine the entire time.
Right.
So
Dude.
it's up
the
there.
world's most suited girl.
Greg, is it hard for you to watch this movie? Because when you see Jimmy Gator, daughter molester, do you just see Bookman from Seinfeld?
Dude, you know me so well. 100%. 100%. That is honestly, for me, that role of his is bigger than this role. And this, I've watched him for, like 30 hours playing this role, but all I think of is Bookman.
When we do Philip Baker Hall's career retrospective,
hell
we're going to have to bring TV into it.
There was at one point in this movie some sort of like expository voiceover or something that indicated that this is all meant to be taking place in a very small area of Los Angeles, like just a few blocks in Los Angeles. Like literally every scene is supposed to be set in a very close proximity. Did you guys get that feeling from the movie? It makes the frog rain make a little more sense.
But Claudia's apartments are nowhere near what's his face? The oldest
Earl Partridge's mansion?
Earl Partridge. Yeah, those aren't near each other in LA.
You guys should walk through LA every once in a while. That is not true.
Those are right?
That they're not.
Yes.
Within a block?
Yes. Or maybe two, I guess. But no, that definitely makes sense. But you don't think of people like that. You know, like to go back to Three Kings, like you're different than me. And so we're going to act completely different to you than I would somebody else. But no, you are in very, very close proximity. And I know LA is sprawling, but still, I definitely buy it. I think that's part of why. But the frogs hit us all. I think that's why it's there.
I feel like they should have found some way to work that into the movie. I do feel like that, like you don't come away from that movie with that understanding necessarily. And I do feel like it helps. Like if you knew that they were all in such a small area, because it's supposed to be like this is supposed to be like the micro and the macro, like we were talking about with Three Kings, right? That like this stands for everything, but it's just a very small area. And I think it makes the frog rain just make a little bit more sense because it's a very compressed area. Excuse me?
The frog rain did happen. It happened. So.
I mean, all sorts of things like this actually have happened. Like the movie makes a good point about that, right? Like we live what we think of as normal lives, but extraordinary things happen all the time. You know, two long lost sisters going to visit each other and they get in a car accident and they hit each other on the way to go see each other and they both die, right? Like that's just like the paper is filled of these sort of like long odds things happening all the time.
That's as long as the movie is. My one big complaint is that the Ricky Jay part at the beginning narrating was not longer. I could have used another hour of that, and that's like how
every movie could use a lot.
And that's a thing I think about all the time. Is he supposed to? Because then Ricky Jay shows up.
Yeah,
and the way this movie is, I was like, is the stage manager the one telling us all these stories? Are we gonna at the post-credit scene? He's just boring some of these smartest kids with all these stories.
You know what it is, Mike? It's like his consciousness is telling the story, but it's not the character. It's just, but it's like if we took his consciousness and then saw it through the lens of this one guy.
But he's on the set and he's bored, and so he's just thinking of shit.
Yeah.
And like that's how
Patton
I
Oswalt
hear
was scuba
stories
diving.
now. Like, and then there's the bird who flew
too
fast, too low to the ground. He had never done that before. And then Randy Johnson went for a pitch, and then boom, show the bird explode. That's how every story should be told from now on.
The experience of watching this movie is I do feel like you feel its length, but I have to say this movie is one thing while you're watching it, but I feel exactly right now the way I did after the Magnolia show, which is that this is the experience of Magnolia, and this is why we care about it. It is the talking about it afterwards, and when we are talking about it, I find myself wishing there was like more Magnolia. Like I just want to hear more perspectives on this, and so it's like when you read The Sound and the Fury. You're reading it and you're just like, you motherfucker, why'd you make this so hard? And the second you finish the book, you're like, I think that was the most important thing I've ever read in my entire life. But you're never gonna love reading it. You know, there might be moments that you love.
You got to go to prison in order to be able to talk about prison afterwards.
I'm more of an Absalom guy.
Oh, damn.
You got to go there to know there. So before we wrap this up, do we think that Magnolia, not even getting its own show, is going to have a chance this year?
I think more than any other show that we've done that hasn't got its own movie, more than any other movie that hasn't gotten its own show so far, yes.
Do you agree, Ryan?
I do. I mean, I just, like, you sort of have to, like, think about, are you a Sopranos guy or a Wire guy? And if you're a Wire guy, then you really want everything to be as tight and like sort of like neatly placed as possible when you are picking your favorite movie of the year. But if you're a Sopranos guy, you just like how like there's just a bunch of shit and dream sequences and it's all random, and like at the end you landed the plane and I don't know how. And if you're the Sopranos guy,
and you
then
can
I think
take
it's
like
Magnolia.
any part of it and you can examine the part of it like very closely, and it tells you more about the whole. Like I think that Sopranos it's an interesting comparison too, because Sopranos came out in 99, right? And it's like at the height of cinema of 99, we're already getting our new love, which is prestige TV. And that's what's like going to come in and steal some of the shine from this.
I think what I'm hoping for, though, is in the finals, being John Malkovich versus Three Kings. So what kind of Spike Jonze guy are you?
Are you the director or the actor? Well, that's all we have to say about Magnolia until the end of the season, where we will see how it faces off against the other movies. When we come back, returning to Three Kings. Well, another great movie talked about, another great show in the books. Let's go to the final score. Let's see who won. Let's see who is going to be my best friend for the next week. Ryan, you came in at 26 points. Very respectable score. Mike, you had 18
That's
points.
not respectable.
That's a less respectable
19 is respectable.
Score. Brian, you came in at 40 points.
Oh, wow.
By far tonight's most respectable score. And congratulations, we are now best friends for the next week. So definitely take advantage of that while you still can. So this movie did very well tonight. We've got good feelings about it. But what I want to talk about is what end of the year awards might this show possibly win. Mike, the Moodies are contested every year. People want to know not just what is the movie of the year, but what actors have taken home the Moodies. What Moodies do you think might be available for this
best
movie?
violence, like
that's what I was wondering about. A movie that is kind of anti-violence might still
but
win
because
with
it's best
violence.
use of violence, right? And
and
I
most
think it is
impactful.
incredibly impactful throughout.
Yeah. What would you say? Is there one moment you could think of? Because it usually
Cow.
gets attached to a moment.
Yeah.
The cow blowing up?
I thought you said now. I was like,
Do it
what's
now,
happening
Mike.
Now. The cow blowing up, or the internal camera, like showing everything. Like this is how a bullet works. Moment.
That's what I was.
You
wondering.
always see these skulls, like these cow skulls, outside of like Arizona and Arizona landscaping. We don't know how they got there. It's from landmines. The cow skull landed there, and
Yeah,
that's how it became part of it.
landmines or football C4.
from the landmine. Ryan, this has never been done before, but we give an award for biggest shithead. Not the villain, the biggest shithead. Could David O. Russell potentially be the biggest shithead?
Maybe. It's possible that an offset person could get the Cokehead from Die Hard award.
Could I say though, Ryan, one thing? David O. Russell also, he said to George W. Bush, you know, we never really finished the job over there. And apparently George W. Bush said to him, well, I will.
I heard that was...
He caused the second Gulf War, Ryan.
Well, that's shitheadish. I also want to put in a plug for best music moment of the year, because for 25, 26 years now, anytime somebody, like if somebody's to me or Greg said, hey, can you get me 3 donuts? We would say, these 3 donuts be stealing your gold. And they would roll their eyes and then ask for 3 napkins. And then we would start over and say, these 3 napkins be stealing your gold. So I think it could win that award.
Oh, Brian, you have been an amazing guest. You won the show.
Oh, thank you.
Going forward for you, where should we be looking for your work? What should we be looking for from you on the horizon?
Well, my Hannibal Lecter book is coming out in February, and then this new podcast for The Ringer called Mission Accomplished is going to start airing in the Big Picture feed August 12th, I think. Hopefully I have that date right. And I'll be running for a couple weeks. And other than that, I will be hanging out with my buddy David O. Russell. We talk all the time. I'll let him know how you guys feel. But no, this has been great. I actually want to get my own end of the year award, which is like I think we can now officially say that Jamie is our best living Kennedy. I think at this point. I think he's probably. I realized while I was talking, I was like, I really did like Jamie Kennedy in this movie a lot, and I really did just rewatch Scream a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, man, he's got an energy that someone's got to tap. Someone's got to find a way to like bring him back in an interesting way. Now that he's older and more grizzled. But yeah, he's very fun in this movie.
And if he
He's
was the
the
health
Tarantino.
secretary,
He's a
things
very
would be better
subtle-
for the country.
It's a very subtle line read, and we talked about it earlier, but when he says of the night vision goggles, when he's told they don't work during the day, the way he very subtly says
Yeah.
they kind of work.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like one of the funnier
Yeah.
line readings that we've had.
Yeah.
This
Also,
year
real
for
quick,
sure.
He's a very believable ding dong in this
Yeah.
movie.
I know that books are hard and long, so please check out on the Big Pig feed. They're only on the Big Pig feed, I think. The Gene and Roger miniseries and the Vietnam movie
hell yeah.
miniseries.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely incredible. Two
Yes.
things that it's the
Thank
kind of
you.
thing that I love what you do, Brian, because between 1999, Karaoke, Roger and Ebert, Vietnam movies, I'm pretty
Yes.
sure I know it all. I'm pretty sure that you are like figuring out the things that I'm interested in and stealing from me. And then when I read or listen to your stuff, it turns out that I barely knew anything. So check those out.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
very kind. Thank you.
That's true. Your stuff contains such a wealth of information that it is like it's intimidating.
Oh, that's very
to
nice.
think
It's not contained in my head anymore. I'm just lucky that I get smart people to talk to me for interviews, and then I completely forget and have to rewatch Three Kings 5 years later, even though I've seen it a million times. But thank
I
you.
love writing so many books that you're like, was that in my book? I don't know, man.
I-
I've already written like 4 books.
That sounds so dismissive, but it's just sort of like, man, I wrote that like 7 years ago. Like, I forgot some of this shit.
For sure. For sure.
I did an interview.
Well, thanks-
I did an interview recently about The Insider, and I was just rereading the chapter, and I was like, I interviewed Jeffrey Wigand. I totally kind of forgot that I did that.
Sometimes you're like, who wrote this? It was me. It was me.
Brian, as movie number 2 this week taught us, life isn't short. It's long.
Over 3
So
hours.
You end up forgetting a bunch of it. Thanks again
You got
for being on the show. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We've still got a bunch of good shows coming to you this year, so look out for those. But until then, do me a favor, will you? Keep watching them movies. Brian Raftery. Brian Raftery. Brian Raftery. Brian Raftery. Brian Raftery. Welcome to the show, Brian Raftery.